The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid, if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Robert Winfree, yay!
Hey, everybody. We're vamping because, boy, do we not have a lot to say about this movie.
I hesitate to say we're going to get this done in 90 minutes because every time I say that, we take 3 hours.
Don't tempt the irony gods. Don't tempt the irony gods.
Yeah, no. We'll somehow stumble ass backwards into a conversation that takes an hour of this podcast. So
we will. But if there was a movie that we might clock out of here under the runtime of the movie, and it's not a Martin Scorsese time dilation thing, there's a good chance this one is. Tonight, everybody, Mark and myself, we are talking about The Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because this is an IP that needed to be revived, Mark.
No, it did not.
It needed to be. Mark, listen to me. We had been 5.5 years, probably closer to 10, without a Hunger Games IP entry. It desperately needed to be revived, just like Lord of the Rings, just like Harry Potter. I can keep going. Do you want me to keep going? These are the words, Mark, of your favorite movie studio executive.
I like when you're me. It's fun.
Yeah, you turned into me over the weekend, so I have to be you now.
Terrific.
We've swapped places, and it's not pretty.
Well, this Freaky Friday presentation of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network would like to inform you that the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds Snakes, is a 2023 American dystopian. That's what I couldn't think of earlier. Dystopian action film directed by Francis Lawrence from a screenplay by Michael Lesslie and Michael Arndt. It is based on the 2020 novel The Ballad of Songbirds Snakes by Suzanne Collins and serves as a prequel to The Hunger Games, which came out in 2012. It is the 5th installment of the Hunger Games series. It stars Tom Blyth, Rachel Zegler from the thing she shouldn't be saying on television, Peter Dinklage, who is now just pigeonholed into drunk dwarf role, Jason Schwartzman, Hunter Schafer, Josh Andrés Rivera, and Viola Davis, who look like the crypt keeper in this movie.
No one apart from the first two you mentioned actually matter to this story.
Set 64 years before the events of the first film. Plot follows the events that eventually lead a young Coriolanus Snow.
Okay, hang on. Coriolanus.
Coriolanus. On the path to becoming the tyrannical leader of the Panem, including his relationship with Hunger Games tribute Lucy Gray Baird during the year of our Lord, the 10th Hunger Games. It held its world premiere in Berlin, Germany, because we needed to assault those people again, on November 5th of 2023, and was released in the U.S. November 17th by Lionsgate, almost a studio. The film has grossed $98.5 million worldwide and received mixed reviews. Yeah, no shit. So I just a quick little bit of backstory, and then I wanted to ask you. I would like for you to show me your thing, to take it out and show it to me, because I know you. Yeah. There we go. I like to have something. I'm very proud of it. You're gonna have to stand back.
They said he was hung, and they was right.
Rawr. When I was doing the schedule,
look, that's the least offensive bit of Blazing Saddles I could have quoted.
A black sheriff.
Where the white women at?
a phrase I've muttered quite often. when I was doing the schedule for 2023, and I saw that this, I think in one of the iterations of the 2023 movie release schedule, something else was released at the same time as the Hunger Games. So this wasn't originally on the schedule because there was something else I would have rather have talked about. I'd been Blade. But it doesn't
would have been, yeah, I think you're right. Blade or Wish might have originally had this, and they pushed it back a week. There were at least 2 other things that occupied this spot in the calendar,
right
up until like 6 months ago.
Yeah, so there was no way I was going to talk about this thing. I have to be very careful because Sarah, who is a big fan of our show and a big fan of you, as I've said before, listens to all of our podcasts, or at least the ones I send her, and she was my authority on, oh my God, the Hunger Games. It was funny because, like I said, there was no way in God's green earth I wanted to talk about this. And I remember thinking to myself when I saw it on the schedule, why are we doing this again? Well, the answer to that question is very simply, they wrote a book. That's why. A book was written. They said, oh, we have more of this IP we can do. It's kind of like the Harry Potter stuff with, Fantastic Beasts. Like, someone wrote a book. Let's just keep making these movies. And they made money once upon a time. So it's not really hard math to figure that out. But without having known that, I was like, we've done the Hunger Games now. Why would we need a prequel to this? And before you show me your thing, and I am dying to see it, and hear you talk about your thing in vascular detail, I think there is a question to be asked. What is the purpose of a prequel? A prequel, it's a rhetorical question, but one for, I think, discussion.
If you don't mind my answer to that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Prequels, their purpose, I'm not even going to give you the cynical answer. The cynical answer is to make money, right?
Well, duh. That's why
I know, but
well,
look, that needs to be said out loud because it does need to. If you don't say it out loud every now and then, people forget that's the reason.
Fair.
That's just the world we live in.
Okay.
The artistic reason is to explore either events or characters that we are loosely familiar with and see how things arrived at the way they arrived at.
I hear you.
Well, so look, let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Why did George Lucas make the Fall of the Jedi Order instead of the sequel to Return of the Jedi, right?
So, hang on. Star Wars is sort of a sticky widget with the prequel thing. You are, but let's remember we have an audience. I have to explain things for them. Remember, for people that don't know, George Lucas wrote approximately a 9,000-page script for Star Wars. It was enormous. Yeah. George Lucas had this whole thing mapped out about Luke Starkiller, and that was the original name. And it was literally it was this journey from, knight to fallen knight to, orphan son. The orphan son becomes a knight, finds his father, defeats his father, saves the world. This is more or less the story. It was supposed to end with the blowing up of the Death Star, but that is literally the end of Star Wars. There was this whole backstory with who would become Darth Vader, his rise and fall, and and how Luke Starkiller was orphaned. And someone took a look at George Lucas' 9,000-page script and went, "No, you lunatic."
Even Martin Scorsese went, we can edit this a little bit.
Yeah, this whole first bit, get rid of it. Let's get to the kids of the mall already. And so essentially, A New Hope, Star Wars, was the middle chap and part of the ending, the middle and part of the end of this gigantic story that George Lucas wrote. So when he went back after now becoming the George Lucas, it was, I have all of this material that I wrote. I want to do this. I want to talk. I want to do the first chapter and a half of my story. Nobody takes that away from him. There were, when Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings, and I can't remember which came first, The Hobbit or what, but
Hobbit came first.
Yeah, The Hobbit was a children's story, about this diminutive creature who finds a magic ring and and helps dwarves rob a dragon. And then
the original version of The Hobbit does not feature the ring at all.
Oh no.
No, Gollum actually just kind of helps him out.
Yeah.
And he revised it when he started writing Lord of the Rings and went, this makes perfect sense for why the ring got there.
Yeah.
Revamped a little bit.
So in those two cases, and the reason why I bring them up is because I think everyone points to them and goes, well, they did it with this and it worked. I'm like, well, it worked for a very specific reason. In many cases, and I'm going to let you get back to your point, but in many cases, though, and I think the infamous one is the Kobayashi Maru in Star Trek.
Look, Jar Jar Abrams and his lizard brain is.
So for those that don't know, in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Kirk and Spock are talking about this captain's test that they have in Starfleet, and it's a no-win scenario, and it's not meant to be won. It's not meant to be beaten. It's meant to see how you'll react in a crisis. What kind of leadership material lies within you when you are tested and pushed to your limit. That's the Kobayashi Maru. Because James Kirk is an entitled brat, he rewrites the program so it's winnable. And that's all he cares about, missing the entire point of the test. So at the end of the movie, when Spock sacrifices himself and dies and there's no way to save him, for the first time in James Kirk's adult life, he has to experience loss and there's no way to fix it. That is the point. You don't do a prequel showing him being the Kobayashi Maru because that's not the fucking point.
Yeah.
And this is my biggest problem with prequels is every time we do one of these, I don't care how Han Solo got his fucking vest. Nobody does. Only the most like Spectrum-y nerds care about this stuff.
Well, hang on. So this is the other problem that I think a lot of people run into. I'm going to include the artistics in here. Art.
Artistic. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I slurred that a little bit. I apologize.
Yeah. I just said Spectrum-y people, and you're like I would like to include the autistics. I'm like, oh, please let's not go down to this road. I was trying to be nice about it.
No, I understand your point.
Yeah.
One of the dangers of creating an interesting world and then having it be successful, is you assume everyone cares about the same granular details that you do.
I assure you we don't. See our last podcast for me nearly wanting to strangle someone because we kept going into granular detail.
Well, the problem is that you as the artist, you know what about this you find interesting. That's not always what the audience finds interesting. And and this is our big point of friction. So if you were to ask me, so you come to me and say, Robert, we got the Hunger Games IP. Yay, good for us. Streaming residuals will be nice. We want to make another one. Dear God, why? Hang on. At which point the other guy goes, money. You want the check? Get the check. You want it?
I as the studio executive, I absolutely am the guy from Idiocracy. I like money.
Yes. So, okay. We want to make more money off of this. Okay. Well, there are two options before me, personally. We either do a sequel or we do a prequel. And everyone kind of sits around and thinks for a minute and decides, okay, prequels are still kind of the thing, and we're not quite sure what we would do with a sequel anyway. So, we told that story. It all kind of wrapped itself up. We're willing to leave that alone. We're not willing to jump all over a happy ending yet. Give it 5 more years, then we'll do that. So let's do a prequel. My prequel would not be this. If you told me creatively, come up with a prequel to the Hunger Games, I'm doing the war. Like that's what we have. That's what we do. We do the fall of the United States, of the relevant governments, because this is alternate history kind of stuff, right? So we do the fall of the established order. We do the war. We do the nuking, and we end with who winds up being Peter Dinklage in this movie, his character. But we end our prequel with the idea of the Hunger Games being kind of Genesis. You have to go so far back,
right?
That because it's the only way you get investment in characters. Otherwise, who has plot armor.
So we've talked a lot of times. You had an entire series on here, which we just for the briefest of moments brought back in a previous Damn You Hollywood, called Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. And there was a conversation over the course of the 2 or 3 years that you did it about what makes the best kind of villain. And the consensus was typically, 99 out of 100 times, there's no explanation for why they exist. They just are. They have a motivation, they have a behavior, they have an attitude, they have a menace. They are directed to do the thing that they feel needs to be done. Thanos, probably the best example, probably the best modern villain in in the fantasy genre. He had a belief, he had a practice, he had a motivation, he had a plan, he executed the plan. And he was sufficiently strong and violent that he was a truly menacing character without having to be all ridiculous about it. This mostly comes up when we talk about the horror genre, about we don't need to explain the monster just is, and it works more effective that way.
It's okay to explain the monster depending on the kind of monster. And
sure.
The problem is, again, this is another issue of perception. Because for those of you who don't know, The Hunger Game, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes follows the rise of Coriolanus Snow, which Mark already referenced. But so to that point, the question becomes, is Coriolanus Snow a compelling enough character to warrant us watching his rise to power and fall from grace, or does he work better as Donald Sutherland, God bless him, by the way, being this quiet, menacing figure as an opponent to Katniss Everdeen?
And the reason why I brought that up is because it's just yet another example of everyone took the wrong lesson from the rise of Darth Vader. Again, I give George Lucas a pass. He wrote a story. He thought this was an interesting story, and I think in better hands it would have been. But not...
He desperately needed a good editor.
Yeah, he desperately needed a lot of things. But if you look at the vast... Thanos doesn't have a backstory. Thanos kind of talks a little bit about how he came to the... Titan was ravaged. It was starving. And he sort of looked around and said, wouldn't it be better if there were less of us? Then if there were less of us, half of us wouldn't be starving. All right. I don't want to get into the Thanos was right stuff, but my point is that's the world he grew up in. That's the world he saw, and he came to what some would say a logical conclusion. You don't need to know anything else more about Thanos, and Natalia, having read the comic books about the rise of Thanos, boy, you don't need to know anything more about Thanos than that. I don't want to keep picking at Marvel, but like Loki, you get his backstory, but his backstory is tied to Thor, and that's the only reason why that works. Is you get the favored son and all of that, and who feels like the ugly child, and they're in that tension, and because a lot of Thor's story is his relationship with Loki, it's okay to tell that backstory. It doesn't always work though, and
hang on. Let me give you another example of one where they didn't go into a deep backstory and it was for the best. Much as I hate the movie, we don't need more from Hela than you were Odin's first child. He didn't agree with your methods and he locked you away. And now you're bitter and you want to claim the throne and you're crazy. That's it. That's all we need. Right.
We don't need Hela the movie.
Yeah.
So
didn't need Cruella either, but here we are.
Ugh. That is a great point. So Cruella was this old rich lady who wanted you to see her vest made from real gorilla chest. Okay, that's it. That's all we need. She killed dogs. I don't need to tell you how many people I know would let you kill their child before they let you kill their dog. And she was making a giant fur coat out of it, out of 101 Dalmatians. That is all you needed to know about Cruella. But because everyone now has to have a fucking backstory, everyone has to have a prequel. She was, a put upon, insulted fucking fashion designer. Who gives a shit? She kills dogs and makes coats. Good. We're good here.
I mean, the quintessential example, to me at least, Maleficent is the mistress of all evil in a fantasy land. I don't need rape allegory here.
Jesus Christ.
About how she became evil.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, what? What? I'd like to express, my feelings about how, everything is rape in a woman's world. Okay, how would you like to frame this? How would you like to share this with? Well, through the story of Sleeping Beauty. You know, anyway, yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah. Head in the oven.
But this is all to say that there's a serious question. Now, look, obviously Suzanne Collins thought that there was something here to talk about with Snow, and I haven't read
There
the
isn't.
books. Well, hang on, I haven't read the book, so I can't
Mhm.
comment on the differences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say again, this is not how I would have approached it, and
I think prequels tend to demystify the villain, which ends up once they're demystified, they're almost like denuded, and that menace sort of
there
looking back just completely dissipates.
the art form to taking a mystical, again, a kind of like almost mythological villain,
Mm-hmm.
and letting you see behind the curtain and increasing the menace they preside that comes from them is, boy, does you can count on one hand, man, the number of times that's worked.
Yeah. So that's and we're going to get into the craft review in a little bit, but I think it was worth having a discussion about how we've taken the wrong lessons from the prequel stories that did work. That you really have to look at the character you're doing or the event or the world and go, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Is this a story that people are going to relate to? And that is a big part of what's going to lead into my criticism of this movie. But before we do that, the other thing we were going to talk about before we get into the movie itself is deception in marketing.
The art of trailer making is kind of dying, I've found. Matt, I almost hate to bring up this example because one, it's very recent, and two, I don't feel like kicking the Marvels again. We're going to do that plenty. But in some of their trailers, they gave away the end. Like if you, and I don't mean like a scene. I mean like there's trailers out there where Monica Rambeau looks at a hole in space and goes, "Wow, that's a whole other universe." Because that's what she does in the movie. Like,
so everyone's seen the Madam Web trailer, and two things. One, I said, hang on. Hang on. I said, take a drink every time one of us says, hang on now. I have not seen the trailer for two reasons. One, hearing enough people say this movie looks like trash was enough for me. Two, as I said months and months ago, I go to the movies weekly between dates and my children, and sometimes I see the same movie twice for the very same reasons. I see all the trailers in the movies. I get sick of seeing the fucking trailers. My God, if I never have to see the Morbius trailer again, it'll be too soon. I went through this with Black Widow too because that movie got pushed back ad infinitum. So
dude, there were trailers for that movie longer than the movie was in theaters.
Yeah,
I feel like that's true.
So my point is, like, I haven't seen the Madam Web trailer yet because I'm gonna see it'll be in front of whatever movie I see next.
It was in front of this one for me.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. We got Imaginary, which scared the shit out of my kids, which was funny.
I got that one. I got Imaginary in front of this.
I got Aquaman. I got Imaginary. Yep. I got The Boys in the Boat, which my son wants to see.
I did not get that one, so I got Madam Web instead of that one.
Yeah. So the point. So what we're getting to is what you want to talk about more so than I was how, like, I know people get excited about trailers. There's a whole cottage industry of like trailer reactions and stuff like that. They do nothing for me. Not the least of which is the reason being, I've now seen so many trailers with footage that isn't in the movie.
Yeah.
And so, this movie you said sparked a whole thing that you wanted to discuss, and I wanted to pick apart a little bit about how the trailer doesn't necessarily advertise the movie you're going to see.
Yeah, just because this came up, I figure we talk about it here because we don't have a whole lot to talk about with the film itself.
Nope.
If we did, I'd put this off again because it'll happen again. It's happened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 3 years, there have been, I want to say 24 examples that we've touched on in passing where saw the trailer, saw the marketing, and it was almost nothing to do with the actual movie. The tone is very, very different. it's selling an adventure flick, and what you're getting is a character drama, or vice versa, or it features predominantly one character who winds up getting cut down a lot in terms of their screen time.
I already mentioned it, but it bears repeating. Morbius. They go out of their way to show you Michael Keaton's Vulture character in the trailer several times. He has nothing to do with the movie, and he's in the one scene at the very end.
He's
just
in
multiverse.
He's in the mid-credit scene. That's kind of all he's got.
Right, but he is all over that fucking trailer.
Yeah. And again, you could, if we went back through the archives, like, we'd find bunches of examples. So here we have another one. If you watch the trailer for this, you are led to believe that Rachel Zegler's character plays a much bigger role in this movie than she does.
Yeah.
And I feel like, here's the thing. What do you bet? That, because Suzanne Collins wrote this thing, and she explicitly wrote it about Snow. What do you bet the marketing department, when they saw the movie, read the book, or read the summary that someone provided them, more likely, shot it, and then you hire whoever, okay, put together the trailer, and the marketing note is, this is a franchise for women. Put Rachel Zegler all over it.
Right.
And somebody went, it's not her story, and the marketing went, shut up, we sell this to women.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I mean, like, I brought my kids to go see it today, but I bring them to go see just about everything. And my daughter was excited for it, but she was excited for it for all the reasons we make fun of her for being excited about anything. Look, girl, my son went because he likes to go to the movies with me. He likes to talk about the movies afterwards. He has some really fun observations, not the least of which, and I told you this before the show, he goes, at the end of the movie, he's like, I think everyone got mad that the last book got split into two movies, and this was a trend in movie making for a while, to split the last movie into two movies, and everyone got pissed about it, so they took 3 movies and made it into one movie because, oh god. And I was like, no, the almost 10-year-old came up with that. It's funny.
Wrong.
He comes up with stuff that I hadn't even thought of, and then when I listened to him to explain it, I'm like, holy shit, that's right. But yeah, like,
you raised a smart you're batting 500. You raised a smart child.
The other one, who gets tired walking, apparently. This is a long story. She was excited because Rachel Zegler is an attractive woman, and she to your point, she thought she was the star of the movie. And I haven't given this movie a tremendous amount of thought. I didn't want to see it in the first place. I don't care about this franchise. I'm sorry. I know someone out there's feelings are going to get hurt by it that I said that, but I'm allowed to not like things.
Well, hang on. In fair to anyone out there whose feelings may have just been hurt by what Mark said, please re-listen to what he said. He didn't say the franchise sucks. He says he doesn't care about it. He didn't insult you because you like something that he doesn't. He said, I don't enjoy this. There's nothing wrong with that. He's not insulting anyone.
I did 4 hours and 2 podcasts on this franchise.
Yep.
I said plenty of nice things about it. I said plenty of nice things about not Jennifer Garner, Jennifer Lawrence. I had my criticisms for it. Like I have my criticisms for anything. But I was mostly complimentary of this series when Sean and I did it a few years ago. And I definitely saw the appeal for women for this movie, for this series. I get it. I don't fucking care about it, but I can, Jesse and I have been going through the David Simon stuff. And, Andrew Graham tells us all the time how proud he is of us and how great it is. And I know most people don't give a shit. I get it. Most people could not give 2 shits and a fuck about this very series of podcasts and shows that I watched and reviewed with Jesse that I am over the top passionate about. It's okay. I'm okay with that. Just like you should be okay with the fact that I don't love the Hunger Games. I don't care about this. That being said, to your point about the marketing, I watched this. I saw the trailers for it. I put it on the review schedule. I knew we were going to talk about it, and I went, "Oh, okay." I'm being led to believe that this is a early Hunger Games, or maybe the first Hunger Games, and we're going to follow Rachel Zegler's character, and through her journey, we will get what eventually leads to the Jennifer Lawrence Hunger Games and the story proper. Nope. That is not this movie. This
Not
movie
at
is The
all.
Rise of Snow, who I barely remembered from the first fucking series of movies. Like, you go, oh, Donald Sutherland, and God bless him. I'm like, oh, that's right, he's the villain. It's 100 years later. Like, I could barely remember him. I kept thinking of the other character, whose name escapes me now. Not Woody Harrelson. Go ahead. I'm gonna look it up and scream.
Well, hang on. Do you mean Stanley Tucci or do you mean Philip Seymour Hoffman?
That's the one, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I kept thinking the lead in this one grows up to be Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's how much I know. That's how much I remembered about this franchise.
Yeah, that tracks.
Anyway, more to the point. You saw a thing and you wanted to talk about a thing relative to false advertising.
Oh. Yeah, it's just becoming more and more a trend in movies that I think there's a lot of dishonest trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good thing. It's we're already like, I think studios don't understand their relationship with the market at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think, we're going to talk about the money later because we do. You'd think at some point everything that's happened in 2023 would penetrate, right? Think about what this is. Think about what the market is saying to you. Think about your relationship with the market.
There's a Dunkin' Donuts close to our house, and the ex and my kids every Friday go to Dunkin' Donuts and they get, I would say coffee and cigarettes. They get, coffee and donuts or whatever snack. They have a routine.
Yeah.
The drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts was designed to be very fast. Get your coffee, get your donut, get the fuck out. Okay? But like everything else that happened in fast food, it expanded and expanded, and the menus, Taco Bell had to finally fucking cut stuff off its menu because it was taking longer to get your food from Taco Bell in the drive-thru than it was to sit down and have a steak at a fine steakhouse. Like you would get food faster at a sit-down restaurant than you would at fast food. But I'm picking at Dunkin' Donuts specifically because every time she goes, she's now like late for work every Friday because she goes to this stupid drive-thru at the same time every morning, and it's taking longer and longer and longer to get through this fucking drive-thru because people either take forever, the service is slow, and relative to what you're talking about here in the movie industry, Dunkin' Donuts doesn't try to change. Dunkin' Donuts just doesn't try to make this better. Dunkin' Donuts doesn't try to accommodate its customers who are trying to get fast food because they know you'll just keep coming. You'll keep coming. You'll keep ordering your stupid donut and your coffee because what else are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Oh my God. Are you actually going to make food at home with the food you bought in the grocery store? Not in the year of our Lord 2023. Not anywhere I've looked.
For another example in the same thing, McDonald's over the last handful of years.
My God.
McDonald's really misunderstood their relationship with the market.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's would give you, for what they charged, a good quality burger in good time, and everyone understood this. Mark, you're old enough, and so am I, to remember when if you didn't have time, you'd send a kid out with McDonald's money.
Yeah,
$5, it would take care of you.
The book The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan talked about how McDonald's was designed for you to drive up in your car, and for a couple of cents, get fries, a burger, and a soda, and eat it in your car. That was the point. McDonald's was not supposed to be fine dining.
And yet, again, because they see so much traffic, and because people say, for $1.50, what you get from McDonald's is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They misunderstood the relationship, and then they tried to get fancy and had to up the prices, and this is not what you're there for.
Right.
And another thing that similar problem, Five Guys. Five Guys makes a darn good hamburger. It is not $20 good.
So
and just where we are.
So in some cases, you're going to keep going to Dunkin' Donuts because where else are you going to go? Starbucks, where they're going to charge you $20 for a cup of coffee? No thanks. And they're just as slow.
And you're going to be in line longer because the Karen in front of you wants ice cream instead of coffee, but calls it coffee.
Yeah. However,
Inject
the movie,
that sugar right into my veins.
however, unlike fast food, the movie industry hasn't caught on seemingly that that people did go to a different marketplace. PVOD, streaming. You can now get everything that you can get in the movie theater with a little bit of patience. You can watch at home. And here's the thing, like I said, you can't get a McDonald's burger necessarily at home. You can get it delivered to you for an exorbitant amount of money, but they're still making the money, so they don't give a shit, and they're going to get shit service and whatever else. The movie industry, rounding this all the way back, when they keep lying to you, when they keep misreading what the audience wants, it just goes elsewhere. There is another place to go in the market. They don't have to, you this is usually the champion of the theater experience podcast, where like, please go see these things in movies. We're gonna lose culture if we don't.
I am an advocate for the theater experience. Much as I'm not a big fan of people and crowds. I understand what the loss of movie theaters would do, and it's not good.
Right. But just to end this point, if you continue to mistreat the marketplace, if you continue to mistreat your customers, your customers found another place to go. Like, my favorite kind of example of this is the episode of South Park where Stan Marsh opens up Stan's dad Randy Marsh opens up a Blockbuster, and he's like, "Oh, it's right in time for Halloween. Everyone will be coming in to rent movies, and they're all walking around with iPads." It's like, it's a really great example of pay close attention to what your market wants, because when you don't give it to them, they'll go somewhere else. I mean, I hate to kind of beat this particular drum, and we can move on after this, but you have to have parents like me that keep kids interested in the movies, because the parents that are not me, the parents that just gave their kid an electronic screen and said, "Do what you will," they went straight to YouTube and TikTok. The crack and heroin of the internet.
They are doom scrolling through YouTube Shorts.
Yeah. And like I said, my kids, quote unquote, are theater trained. We go to the movies almost every week. And when we come out of the movies, after we're done talking, after we've, had our food, we've had our family time, you know what my son is doing right next to me as I'm driving? He's on fucking TikTok. Imagine everyone else's kid who, they're not taking them to the movies like I am. So, if you don't have a massive correction, if you don't stop doing what they did with this movie, which is, look, Rachel Zegler. It's not really about her, though. Who gives a fuck? Just give us her money. Give us your money. Then people just go, meh. I'll just go on TikTok and watch clips of the movie out of order. It'll be fine.
There is to that point, not just that, the industry on the critical sub-industry that is just roasting movies left, right, and center. It shouldn't be as big as it is. Yeah. Like, by all logic, criticism should not be more popular than the thing it is criticizing. Again, this should just track logically. Somehow, with a bunch of these movies, we've inverted that. And
I've actually heard people say to me, like, I'll just watch my favorite podcast review this. It'll be fine.
Yeah. That
is a damning indictment of movie making, that people would rather, this has turned into video games. Watching other people play video games has become a large cottage industry.
It's something I have on in the background frequently. I'll have Twitch open.
Mm-hmm. And now it's happening to movies, where people would rather watch.
There's a react. Yeah, not even a reviewer. I'll watch like a react channel where this 2.5 hour movie is cut down to 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe it or not, you can tell the entire story cohesively within that time, and this fun person is making faces.
There was a great YouTube channel. I don't watch it anymore. I don't have the time for it. But there was this great thing of, I showed my wife. So there was this guy who was clearly, embedded in the nerd culture, and his hot wife, who knew none of these things and had no relationship to them. But it, so she had funny reactions to things. And this got a bunch of horny guys to watch her react to Marvel movies. It was great because she reacted big, and it was fun to kind of watch. It was fun to watch her watch your favorite movies with her eyes. And like he had a really popular YouTube channel because of that.
I'm not trying to diss on reactors here when I say that too, by the way, because the genuine ones, and some of them are just actors, right? But the genuine ones are the ones who are good enough actors. Like, you never get to watch Star Wars for the first time again. I say that because I know, not my favorite thing, but one of yours. I don't get to watch my favorite thing for the first time ever again. I had that experience, and I look back on it and I think, boy, I'd love to do that again. The closest you can get is watching someone else do it.
Yep. It breaks my heart a little bit that as many times as I've tried, I cannot get my kids to watch Star Wars. Like
they've heard me insult it too much.
Well, the hilarious thing about it was like, especially with Lily, it was like, hey, you like girl shit. You like when girls are out front. Like, that's the whole new fucking trilogy. And they're like, yeah, great. Rey's great. I can see what I need to see on YouTube and TikTok. Oh, all right. The very first. I think
Rey is not great.
I think I've tried to get them to watch A New Hope at least twice, and both times they're like, "This is boring as shit. No thanks." Okay, like if I bring them to the theater because they're trapped in the theater with me, it's one thing. Like, I brought Lily, I think, a little ways back to go see Return of the Jedi, and she liked it. It was fine. I'm like, does this inspire you to watch any of the Star Wars movies? Not even a little. Okay, great. All right, you want to get into the movie?
Yeah, we might as well. We've been here 40 minutes. We should talk about this movie in particular at some point. So, everybody. Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. We open in the sort of the dying days of the war, I imagine. And we meet young Coriolanus Snow and his cousin as they are briefly attacked by a rabid dog and are scavenging for food. And they come back home to Coriolanus' grandmother to the news that his father has been discovered, a traitor to the capital. He's been killed. And whatever will we do now? Fast forward to high school. Because young adult. And Coriolanus Snow, his family is hanging on by a thread. They are keeping up the pretenses of being rich and powerful because capital. But they're struggling. And he arrives back. He's worked very hard. He's not missed a class. He's pulling straight A's. But his teacher is Peter Dinklage, and he doesn't like him. He's trying to win an academic achievement that comes with a boatload of money to save the family estate. And he should earn it. He's earned it. He should get it. And it turns out there's a curveball because now there's one more test. You see, the Hunger Games, Mark, they've been going on for about a decade. And you know what happens about the 10-year mark? People stop caring. See the MCU, see any number of sitcoms,
Yeah,
I could go on.
This gets old fast.
And turns out watching people kill each other for your amusement.
Not people, children, little children.
You're right. Children aren't people. They don't count.
Well, no. Silly. When you say people, you're denoting adult people. It's a particularly barbaric game I'm saying it because the film made a point of saying it, and it bears repeating. You are literally sending children to murder each other. This is inhumane.
Yeah, it's what 12 to 18. I forget this. The age range for this. It's like 10 or 12 to 18 because after you're 18, you're no longer eligible.
Right.
So yeah. So turns out watching children kill each other is again shelf life. And maybe it's run its course. The viewership is declining, Mark. The market is speaking.
Yes.
And Viola Davis, with different colored eyes and auditioning for the role of Frankenstein,
Yes, who I believe look, Viola Davis is one of the best actresses going today. I am not taking anything away from this woman. I'm sure if we went through her filmography, I could tell you a bunch of wonderful things she's done. I don't know what the direction was here, but apparently it was, can you do the Crypt Keeper? Just keep doing that.
Mark, what's your favorite instance of an actor just chewing scenery?
I think the one I most commonly go back to the default one is Denzel Washington Training Day.
She was shown that and said, "This is subtle. I want you to go over the top."
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's her performance. She is the game master. She's the one who designs the Hunger Games, and despite there being a nominal president of Panem, we never see him. She's the default dictator, I suppose. And she is out here she is doing a Vince McMahon. She's like, get me some ratings, damn it.
Yeah, she wants Crash TV.
And she's like, we need ideas to save the Hunger Games. And Coriolanus stands up and goes, well, all these people are is meat. Of course no one cares. And you're not allowing us to gamble on this. Like, where's the investment from the audience? Why should they care?
Right.
All the people who might have received a cathartic experience out of watching the children of their hated enemies from this massive war have got that. Somebody at one point mentions, like, yeah, all the children you're bringing into this, like, some of them were only 2 when the war ended.
Right.
What are we doing here? And Coriolanus goes, look, he's right. You can't rely on tribalism at this point to try and sell it. You need to give the audience a rooting interest. And he's right. And they go, that's not a bad idea. Well, we'll do the reaping. And by the way, part of what's going to determine who wins this academic and monetary prize is how good a mentor you are. And we're not quite at the point where each district has one mentor for both children. So every individual tribute gets an individual mentor from the top 24 students. And Coriolanus decides, okay, this sucks. This isn't fair, but... And congratulations, you get the female protagonist as your tribute.
Yes, you get what most people would consider pretty girl.
You get the ethnic pretty girl who sings. Boy, I wonder how this is going to go.
What an uphill struggle you'll have, Snow.
If he was aware of the plot, he wouldn't have won. At least he didn't get the girl with Down syndrome. And I wish I was joking.
So I have to talk about that for 1 second. And you know me, I don't like to interrupt your plot synopsis, but so Jonas, dear sweet Jonas, dear bright Jonas, made a point of saying, like, what's with the girl with tuberculosis and why the girl with Down syndrome and the one-armed guy. None of this seems sporting. And I went, Jonas, you're only in elementary school. You're in the 4th grade, so you haven't gotten to Hitler yet in the final solution. But let me tell you about the final solution, dear boy. Dear partially Jewish boy.
By the way, you're like half Jewish, right?
Yes. And I explained to him, I said, there are obviously elements that were drawn from the final solution, the historical final solution.
Eugenics.
Yeah, eugenics. In that...
Which Iceland is a big fan of, apparently.
Not the time nor the place. And I said to him, think about this, Jonas. Every district has to sacrifice a kid. Everyone's on their ass. This is a fight. This is a struggle to survive situation. And you have all of these kids who are not going to be able to grow up and contribute productively to this society that's on its ass. So yes, you send the kid with one arm, the kid with the tuberculosis, the Down syndrome girl. You send them all because what good are they going to do you when they grow up except to be people you have to take care of? In a kind and society with plenty, you take care of these people. They are your glorious burden, as it were. In a society where you're just fighting to survive, you step on them because that's how humanity works. And, we went back and forth a little bit. He was like, but it's so cruel and horrible. And I'm like, yeah, the final solution was not known for its mercy. It was a pragmatic solution to dealing with, we have too little resources and too many people. So who are we killing first? The Hunger Games, ladies and gentlemen.
Not wrong. So anyway, he
Thanos
decides.
was right. Just kidding.
So Coriolanus goes to meet Rachel Zegler's character of Wednesday Gray. I don't know.
Wednesday Addams.
Sure. This was almost Jenna Ortega, I'm pretty sure.
Look, well, from now on, we will now be referring to Rachel Zegler as almost Jenny Ortega.
Well, you know, Jenny Ortega is the better version. I think
Fair.
that's fair to say.
Certainly more talented actress.
Yeah. But long story, but anyway, he goes to meet her and she makes a big scene at her reaping when she throws a snake at the mayor's daughter and then sings a song, and she's just the most specialist singer ever, Mark. Everyone is touched by her song. People stop in the street to listen to her sing.
I am going to let you continue, but boy, do I have some things to say about her performance in this.
And her lip syncing.
Yes.
Okay, we have Aretha Franklin's voice on file. We can do something with this. Just pretend you're Aretha Franklin.
So, all right, Rachel, I need you to lip sync this song. We're gonna dub in the sound later. Like here, just do the following and strum, and it'll be here, hi ho. Like, wait, what the fuck? Hi. Wait, no.
That is so not her singing voice. By the way, do the Southern accent because it's endearing. Right?
Oh, if you're gonna bring it up now, then I have to say something. The first time she talks, because I walked away during, I went to the bathroom and I went to go get a drink when she has her big first song, and at the end of it, she was just like "fuck you all" or whatever it is she says at the end. And she does the bow that's prominent in the trailer. So I came in
hard.
So I walked in just as she's doing that bow, and I missed what preceded that. So the first time I hear her speak is when she tells Snow that that her mother used to bathe her in like milk and rose petals. And I looked over at Jonas. I'm like, if she does this with the whole movie, I'm not going to make it. Like, that wasn't a performance. That was an impression of somebody making fun of the South. It's awful.
Yeah. Yes.
Thankfully, she loses about halfway through the movie.
Then regains it near the end, which is because consistency.
Sure.
Anyway,
somebody during the shooting of this was like, tell her to stop doing the fucking accent.
So he goes.
He's out of order. So I'm guessing like where it's real thick. They shot it in the beginning, and then they're watching dailies. They're like, listen, for whatever the rest of this movie is, no more of that. Ugh, like, not worth reshooting. But oi,
scale back. Anyway, Coriolanus goes to meet everyone as they are getting off the train because his cousin is like, hey, humanity's important, not just in the aggregate, but in the individual. So, you know, you need her to win. You need her to do stuff for you. She needs to trust you, form a relationship. Don't just be some arrogant jackass. And he goes, okay, this is good advice. I will take this advice. So he goes to meet her. They talk. He gets thrown in the zoo with them briefly. There's an interview, and ultimately this all is kind of proof of concept for his points to the games director, Dr. Gall. And so his fellow students start trying it, and this goes poorly. One of them gets stabbed in the neck with a bottle, even though there's no blood.
Hang on.
I can assure you.
It's important to note that particular interaction was the student was antagonizing and teasing.
Oh yeah, she was doing the. Do you want that? Nope.
Yeah,
no,
right. And so finally, the animal snapped and bit her. Is what happened, because that's what happens when you antagonize an animal.
I've been poking at them all day, singing off key to them, just making their lives miserable.
Right. I don't know why it bit me.
My gripe is like, you get a bottle in the neck. I need blood. I really need some blood for that kill.
What are you ready to do? Monty fucking Python of this PG-13 movie is like spurt up like Mount Vesuvius?
At least have it pool on the ground. There's a scene after, because Coriolanus is present for this, and he's dragged away for his own safety. There's a scene when he looks down at his hands after he's been dragged away from trying to save this girl's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was told, will CGI the blood onto your hands react as though there's blood?
Right.
Because there's no reason for him to look at his hands, and the angle we should see it.
Right.
I did this thing with Uncharted, but like, when what's her face, the lesbian, cuts Antonio Banderas' throat, and it's just like a lipstick line here.
Oh
and I'm
my
like,
God.
there's so many things you can do to save this.
You mean
and
Alexis
you didn't.
You mean Alexis fucking bagged on that for a good 20 minutes about how like you're doing things in the movie that would evoke a giant blood response, and then there's no blood, making what you did completely pointless. Like,
And
don't kill people that way then.
broken bottle to the neck, blood.
Mhm.
There's
Right.
gonna be like, look, some of the other kills where there is no like blood, I'm okay with. Like, you go out of your way to make
Spit in her
that
eye.
work.
Just spit in her fucking eye. I mean, if you're not gonna do blood, just go. Hey, you want it? You want it? You know what? Fuck you. And now you can have literally the same response. Oh my God! Let me tell you something. You spit at my place of work, a bag goes on your head like you're an Abu Ghraib ass, okay? And they fucking drag you away and throw you in a restraint chair. In a post-apocalyptic dystopian society, you spit in the rich girl's eye, they're gonna do the same, if not worse. It'll be fine. You don't want to do blood, don't do blood, but then do something like that.
Yeah, again, you can't do bottle to the neck and then have literally no blood. Sorry.
Yeah.
You've lost me at that point. But so they go tour the arena, and then the rebels, Mark, the rebels, they bomb the place.
Legitimately, like the one jump scare of the entire movie. I was like, that legitimately got me.
I watched that, and as they're doing this 360 panning with the explosions, I went, are they showing off their VR technology for explosions? And we're gonna come back and the arena's fine. It looked that bad.
Like I said, just the suddenness of it. I wasn't expecting it, and then the sound. I saw it in Dolby Theater, so it was loud.
Yeah.
It got me. Like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like, oh no, I was fine with it. Like there was I viscerally jumped in my chair. I was like, oh shit.
Things started blowing up. It tracks.
Yeah.
So again, big explosion.
I reacted more viscerally to that than I did in Oppenheimer.
That's because you're not fully capable of processing the implications of Oppenheimer versus.
Oh, shut up.
Anyway, explosion. Rachel Zegler eschews her a chance to escape and saves Coriolanus after debris falls on him. And somebody escapes, and Coriolanus' best friend is the son of like the wealthiest guy in the world, I guess. And he's all, the Hunger Games are terrible. I have just
he's just standing for rich liberal.
He has white liberal guilt tattooed across his face.
Yeah, that's literally the name of this character is white white liberal guilt.
Champagne socialist right here. I only aided a rebellion. No one told me there would be guns. Actual line from him in this movie, by the way.
Yeah. I trusted you. I didn't think you'd actually use the guns.
I gave you money to help generate supply chain. These are supplies when we start shooting. Ammunition bullets are supplies, man. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, Coriolanus, so the games go forward. He winds up cheating. He smuggles in some rat poison to Rachel Zegler that she winds up using throughout the course of the games. And our big finale is Dr. Gall has created a bunch of abominations. These are genetic monstrosities, the jabberjays that wind up crossbreeding with mockingbirds to create the mockingjays that we know sort of from the other movies. And her big finale is I've got a big old tube of snakes. And they're all rainbow colored.
And they had established that if, like dogs, if the snakes had smelt your scent before and
if you were familiar to them, they wouldn't attack you.
Right. If you had been that's what it was. If you had been feeding them, if you had been kind to them, if they were used to your scent, or if they were just used to your scent, then they are not going to attack you.
So when that is about to be delivered, he smuggles in his handkerchief that he had used to wipe away tears and sweat from Rachel Zegler. I'm like, okay, please let this work. It does. So we have the Hunger Games that go off and people die, and it's sad. It's sad, Mark.
And Rachel Zegler lip syncs another song, and she sings softly to the snakes, and the snakes go, "You're pretty. We don't want to bite you."
And the CGI snakes go, meh. But she sings, and Coriolanus and all the other students are looking at the doctor at this point in time because, well, in the bombing, the son of the president of Panem was killed. You'd think this would be a bigger deal, by the way. And she kind of goes on you know what, I don't care if there's no winner this year. We're not going to let this stand. So bunches of snakes. And Rachel Zegler is there singing to the snakes and not taking the fruit that they offer. Because I needed a biblical allusion for this podcast. And everyone kind of tells her, you know, she's won. They're not attacking her. She's a big star. Yes, part of what makes the Hunger Games work is that there is a winner. Otherwise, what are we doing here other than you lose the thin veneer of competition when all you make is snuff. At the moment, we still have the thin veneer of competition here, right? And do you really want to strip that away? And she goes, fine. Rachel Zegler can win. She wins at everything. She is Rachel Skywalker. And storms off. And unfortunately, Coriolanus' cheating is discovered, and Peter Dinklage mocks him because he and his father had a long friendship / acrimony. And he says, I get to decide your punishment, so you will serve for 20 years in the military. And you will be exiled, and we will never speak of you again. And Coriolanus bribes the people at his assignment to say, don't send me to District 8.
And now, at this point, you would think the movie should be over, and we're done here. Nope, we still have another hour of this piece of shit to go.
He bribes he says, go send me to District 12, which is where Rachel Zegler's from. And he is sent there because they accept the bribe, and his best friend comes along because, of course, because he had a thing where he kind of broke down during the games, and he caused a kerfluffle, and Coriolanus had to go save him. So they both become peacekeepers. They both go to District 12, and who doesn't love Georgia at this time of year? It's lovely. So they go to Appalachia, which is where the coal mining is happening. And they become peacekeepers, and Sejanus is still trying to he's still trying to feed the resistance, and Coriolanus is like, look, I'm just here to serve my sentence and get out of here. And Rachel Zegler shows back up because she was given money and a pat on the head and told to go back to your life. Because you're the only one left alive, and if we kill you, again, we lose the thin veneer of competition, and people kind of like you, so off you go. And she shows back up, and she's performing folk music, dark country, allegedly. And she and Coriolanus reunite, and they kind of fall in love, and it's all sweet. And then Coriolanus gets hip to his friend trying to start a rebellion. And around this time, Coriolanus' commanding officer calls him in and goes, look, your aptitude is good. You're a smart guy, especially relative to your peers, only half of whom can read. We're wasting you here as a low-level guy. How about you go become an officer? You'll make real money, and you'll get to do real stuff, and you won't be stuck here in the backwoods of the American Southeast, rotting away in the redneck Riviera, as it were. And Coriolanus goes, yeah, this doesn't seem like a bad idea. You know, my girlfriend's here, and I'm half considering desertion anyway, so the promise of upward mobility does seem good. And then everything goes sideways. So, again, he gets a recording of Sejanus essentially confessing his crimes and explaining the plan, and he sends that to Dr. Gall via Jabberjay. And then there's a shootout. There's a brief shootout because Sejanus is trying to just get innocent people out of the dystopian tyranny, which is admirable. But everything he's tried to do for these people just results in them buying guns and killing people and violence. And he's like, I don't want this. And Coriolanus tells him, what did you think was going to happen, dummy?
Look, I understand you're savages, but I wanted you, I wanted to help you in a peaceful way so that you don't attack the people I'm actually from. See, I was going for a non-violent, peaceful solution here because that's who I am as a person. And wait, why is no one listening to me? Where's everyone going?
Yeah. And So again, there's a stupid subplot about Rachel Zegler's character's previous boyfriend being with the mayor of District 12, his daughter, and it's a thing, and a bunch of people get shot, and Coriolanus shoots the mayor's daughter because she's gonna go confess everything and wants to see everyone hang, and then Rachel Zegler's old boyfriend gets shotgunned by the leader of the resistance, and Coriolanus then goes, "Okay, everybody get the guns, get rid of them. There's no evidence at the moment."
I feel like that scene was supposed to evoke a response from the audience. Oh no, the mayor's daughter. But I live in the real world where everyone was like, no, I'm glad they shot her.
Yeah, and this entire section here, there's supposed to be some like political tension, and there's just not.
No.
Anyway, around this time, so now the mayor's daughter has been shot, so the peacekeepers have to come out.
I have to say this. Your lead character, again, this is the Star Wars problem, but Darth Vader is supposed to be a tragic tale. You're like, oh my god, he was such a great person. But I'm inserting this here, and I don't mean to cut you off in your plot synopsis.
When all the good stuff they do is off screen and you're only told about it, and all the bad stuff they do is on screen, it doesn't work.
More to the point, Anakin was a good person. He came from a rough situation, and he had some questionable, morality to him, but he was trying his level best. It was only when his beloved was in danger of dying, and everyone he turned to, the great religious people of his society, said, there's nothing we can do, let her die. And he went, that's unacceptable. And somebody else came along and said, there is something that can be done. It's questionable, morally speaking, but he'll save her. And he went, well, at least you're giving me a solution. Nobody else is. And he succumbed to the dark side because all he wanted to do was make sure Padme didn't die. Okay, that's fine. And so we follow. So in better hands, we follow that story, and we're with him, and we're rooting for him. And when he finally does turn, we're like, no, this hurts. This is upsetting. We like this guy. Never mind his speech about sand. Let's forget that just for a moment.
That's good. I'm pretty sure that was on Anakin's tombstone is sand.
We don't want this. When Frodo is standing in front of the fires of Mount Doom, and he finally the
ring is mine,
and loses his mind, and he succumbs to the evil inherent in the ring. You feel bad, as you were rooting for him, like you were Middle Earth's only hope, that your purity and innocence would save you from the rings, from the evil within the ring, and that you would be able to complete this task. And he failed, and you as an audience member go, no, tragedy. There's nothing like that in Snow's character. So everything that you've seen him do up to this point, him saving Rachel Zegler was half, well, she saved me first. Also, I want to win. These are not noble things. These are relatable. We do things maybe that we don't want to do because we want to win. We do things because we feel like we owe somebody. But owing somebody and wanting to win are not noble. They're just good motivators. So you as an audience member are supposed to be rooting for this guy and then feel bad when he goes to the dark side and, oh no, tragedy. And there's nothing like that in his character or in this movie. And that was my great frustration with it. And I'm pointing it out here in the middle of your plot synopsis because this is where the bulk of that's supposed to be happening in the movie is. So he's done all of these great things to get Rachel Zegler to the point that she's free now and can go back to her home planet. And you're like, okay, I'm with this guy. So kind of so far. And then there's this whole third of the movie where you're like, oh no, the fall. And I'm like, nope, this doesn't work.
You really, there is, when I say what you need here, I mean narratively. I don't mean this movie needed more runtime. We needed to spend time with him as a peacekeeper. We needed to spend time with him doing that job and trying his level best. Like, we need to see him form, quasi relationships with the people. We need to see him with other soldiers. Like, we need to see his humanity during this time period.
Right. And so I want to bring up another parallel. It's dumb. It's handled poorly, but follow me here. What sends Anakin over the edge is the belief that Padme has betrayed him and joined up with Obi-Wan, who he has utterly lost his patience with. When he thinks essentially that Padme cheated on him, that's when he goes fucking crazy and tries to kill her. Because who hasn't been there as a guy? Rachel Zegler. I like that that's your fucking thing. Like, not that I said it, then I purred after. It's like, yeah, don't purr that.
It really was the purr. Like, the rest of it, I'm still with you.
Rachel Zegler needed to be kind of a bag of shit. She, she needed to, you need to believe that Rachel Zegler was honest and pure, and then she does something so horrible that every guy in the audience is going, I've been there. Yep, now I understand why Snow said fuck it and became an evil dictator. That's the biggest problem with this movie, is that this is supposed to be a movie for women, except that they do things in the movie that guys could relate to, but they run away from it screaming because they don't want to make a movie for men in this movie, which is way frustrating. Because tell your story. Don't worry about don't worry about which gender this was geared towards. Just tell the fucking story and let the chips fall where they may.
Or you could be Greta Gerwig and get bitter at men for owning the Ken stuff. Jeez, I wish I was joking, man. I wish I was joking about her reaction to this, but yeah, like the fact that so many men have just like quasi taken possession of the Barbie movie is like, she's real bitter about that.
Okay, I believe you. I haven't been following it. I thought you were going in a different direction. Anyway, we're almost done here. Go.
Yeah. But no, just as a craft issue, to your same point, like we need him being a somewhat decent guy, and we need the veneer of Rachel Zegler's perfection to fall away during this time period.
Yeah.
And it, like that bit when he decides having killed this person, and now the guns are out there and there's evidence that can be gotten from them, and boy, I'm not sure about this. But his message to the Capitol has been received, so we kill the ringleader, we kill a girl that was in prison who was a terrorist, and we kill his best friend for making this all possible. And this bothers him. He mourns the death of his best friend. Best performance in this movie, I mean, seriously, best performance is the guy playing Snow. That was actually good casting. He does a pretty good job with this character. But he now decides, you know what? I'm out. Yeah, I maybe could have been an officer, but there's still evidence out there against me. I can go with the woman I love and we can leave, and I don't know what'll happen, but I'm kind of out on this. That's where he arrives at. And as he and Rachel Zegler are leaving, he kind of lets slip that he killed his best friend. And he tries to cover it, and she's like, oh no, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. So they get caught in a storm, so they take refuge in a cabin that they've been to before, and under the floorboards are the guns from the incident. And he's like, wait a minute, how did these get here? And I don't know, maybe the guy you left them with, he knew about this place. Or you did, and you're more involved in this than we thought. And they kind of have this little back and forth where he's like, it occurs to me I'm the only loose end from your, murder. And he goes, you really think I'd kill you? I'm ready to abandon everything, including my family back at the Capitol.
Most relatable bit of dialogue exchange in this entire movie is the woman going, this crazy thing might happen, and the guy going, how could it? I don't understand you. I've done everything for you that I could. Why would you think I'm going to turn on you? And the woman goes, because I'm a girl. And she saunters off into the forest.
Because I'm not sure I can trust you anymore. You said a thing, and I didn't like your explanation for the thing, so now I'm going to go. And she runs away, and he gets paranoid, so he chases after her, and then he gets bitten by a snake, and he's like, oh, you tried to kill me. He loses his mind in the woods, like you do. He shoots at her, or he shoots at something. I'm not sure if it's her or a hallucination.
He thinks it's her. Yeah.
And she has left. She's gone. She's now in the woods living deliberately like we all should. And he disposes of the weaponry. He goes back. He takes his place in the officer. He's ready to go become an officer. And then he gets whisked back to the Capitol where Dr. Gall goes, you've passed all of my tests. I totally knew the FBI was setting up the CIA with the NSA. And she asked him, so what are but now you'll go to the university, and the Plinth family, this very wealthy family who was your best friend, and they're willing to pay for it all. So what are the Hunger Games actually for? Because you still haven't given me a good answer for that. You gave me the textbook answer, but not the real answer. And he gives the real answer, which is it's a microcosm of the human condition, and it reminds everyone what we really are and what might happen to us. And she goes, "Good boy. Now let's go finish off the movie." So he goes to see Peter Dinklage and gloat. And Peter Dinklage goes, I blame your father for the Hunger Games. I was drunk when I came up with the idea. Very drunk. Somebody said, come up with a punishment for the districts. The worst thing you can imagine. And he came up with the Hunger Games. And he said, and the next morning when I sobered up, like so many people, I wanted to stop it. I wanted to throw it away. It was a bad idea. But your father put his name on it alongside my name, and he turned it in, and we became famous. And now, because of your presentation ideas, you've showed us, don't you understand, sir? You have shown us how far people will go for a good show. They won't go to the movies. That much is clear at this point in time. And anyway, Coriolanus he gloats. He leaves him some drugs that he has poisoned, and Peter Dinklage takes the drugs that are poisoned and dies. And Coriolanus walks into the big promenade circle, and he stares up at the big statue, and ominous music plays, and then we get a Donald Sutherland sound over where we replay a line he said to Katniss earlier, and it's the things we love that end up destroying us. And this overwrought movie has ended.
I relate.
The capacity to love is the capacity to be hurt, Mark, and that's just the duality of it, and there's not a better way to go about it.
All right.
This is where the movie ends.
Yeah. 2.5 hours, I think the thing clocked in at.
Something like that.
Yeah, 157 minutes. So, 2 hours, 37 minutes. Oy, this fucking thing. My son, not wrong. This felt like 2.5, 3 movies compiled into one. My initial Jonas asked me, like, what did you think of the movie? Like, did you like it? Did you not like it? And I was entertained. My biggest problem with this goes back to what we said at the top of the podcast about, I don't know, this didn't seem like a story worth telling.
Yeah.
That is my biggest problem with this movie, is this story isn't compelling enough, because essentially the story that you're telling is, how did Snow become the president of this dystopian society? Okay. He didn't come from nothing. He was a rich kid. They fell on some hard times, but he kept his shit together and he pushed forward. And when challenges were thrown at him, he overcame them. All right. Well, what about he gave his heart to a woman and she threw it in the trash? That's not really what happened. She's a decent gal who just wanted to be left alone in the first place. She didn't want to be forced into, surviving the game. And he fell head over heels for her because she was a pretty gal who paid attention to him, like you do. And when she really, and when she realized he was a murdering bag of shit, she took off. And he got mad about it. Accept the fact that I'm a murdering bag of shit because I like you, and that should be enough. And she went, "No, I'm a halfway decent person, and you're terrible."
I'm an alleged paragon for the purposes of this movie because it never bothers to address any of that.
Yeah, but that's it. Like, so he isn't really betrayed. He isn't somebody who came from nothing, rose to heights, and and was tempted with power. He was after power the whole time. This isn't about, is your story here, well, how did the Hunger Games become what it was when Jennifer Lawrence was in it? Because who gives a shit? It evolved over time. This is again, like, my biggest parallel to this movie is Solo. Because so much of Solo was, how did Han Solo get his vest? Who gives a fuck? How did he get his gun? Who gives a fuck? How did he meet Chewie? Who cares? None of this is
The Chewie thing could have had legs. Like
Okay,
that might be.
It all
well,
could
hang
have
on.
had legs.
Well, I only bring that up because Chewie is another character, and their
Mhm.
relationship is important. Han's vest, his gun, his stupid gold dice, none of that matters.
Look, I don't want to get into a debate over Solo. We've had that podcast. It's in the archive. Chewbacca is Han Solo's dog. And yes, there could be a great story about a boy and his dog, but you don't need to tell the story about the boy and his dog. You just needed to know that Han was a pirate and he had a pet dog that would bite you if you fucked with him. That was it. That was his whole purpose in Star Wars.
Well, you know the irony of that, right?
What?
If you understand, because you've gotten into the weeds on occasion on Star Wars, so I don't feel like I'm getting too granular here, but
Mhm.
given the relative lifespans, Han is actually Chewie's dog.
Fine, sure. My point being that when going back to what you said about if you're going to pitch a studio executive for money to do your Hunger Games story, you haven't answered the first most important question, which is why is the story you're telling important? What's interesting about it? Again, this is analogous to the Kobayashi Maru thing, where it's like, well, Kirk talked about this thing in a movie we all like. What if we saw it? Why? It's not important.
We know he said he cheated. We know he cheated. The purpose of the Kobayashi Maru is the payoff later.
Right.
Seeing him do it is not interesting.
Right. Watching Kirk see his best friend die after his best friend sacrificed himself to save the crew, seeing Kirk utterly powerless, after having been this person who's overcome almost anything. He's never lost. He never lost. And now he has to lose everything. And the drama is in how William Shatner portrays this character crumbling under the weight of it all. There's nothing like that in this movie. Again, Snow starts off as a guy trying to hold it together so that he can be successful. He's thrown a handful of challenges. He overcomes them. He has a setback. He overcomes it. And then he becomes Darth Vader. And I'm sitting here going, I wasted 2.5 fucking hours on this so that I could talk to my friend about another movie that came out this week, because that's what we do. But there was a conversation in our chat about how I'm not excited for like 90% of the movies coming out, starting with this one.
Yeah, hang on. So everyone understands what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, Mark turns into me for a period of time. He just said, we briefly were like, the Hunger Games movie's next, and we were talking a little bit about the Marvels, and we'll talk about it again here because we're going to talk the money in a minute.
I think the premise of this was there's no MCU movies outside of Deadpool, and everything that was because of the SAG strike, because of any number of details, a lot of stuff that I might have been excited for got pushed into 2025. So we were kind of reflecting on what's left, and I went, yikes.
Yeah, so we looked over 2024 at the moment, and I think you had 3.
Yeah.
That you were like mildly to genuinely positive about.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were going through it, I kind of went, oh, man. Because there was
every year that we were going to quit doing this. It's going to be 2024.
You ain't kidding, man. Like you turned into me, and as you went through the list, I almost became more of me, because I almost went even darker. I was like, man, what is this crap?
Some nice things I can say about this movie, so that when people listen to this going, please say something nice, I'm going to drive my car into the fucking, into the Hillsborough River. Rachel Zegler, outside of when she stopped doing the stupid Southern accent, because, was that awful. When she stopped doing that, she's good. She's pretty. She's, I liked her best when she was actually, I liked her best when she was actually in the Hunger Games. Because they didn't make her, that's probably the best part of the entire movie. For a variety of reasons, but her performance when she's in the Hunger Games, and a little bit of the stuff before that, like when they put her into the zoo cage and she, and he's like having a heart attack, like, oh god, I didn't mean for this to happen, and she's just like, fucking own it, like whatever it is you're trying to do here, own it, project confidence, because we're never gonna get out of this alive if you don't. All that stuff is good. Rachel Zegler is a competent, dynamic, interesting performer up to the end of the Hunger Games part. Her with the CGI snakes all over her after she sings, or lip syncs the song. I enjoyed all of that. She looks great. That's about all I can say about her. Her character sucks, but her performance is good. The guy playing Snow, he's really good. He definitely carries the movie. Again,
I can't
they
tell
don't
you
give
how
him a
much
character I want to. They don't give him a character I want to root fucking for, but
I so
he's
wish
good
they'd done
in
a
what he's
better
doing.
job writing Snow, because this guy the actor nails it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wish the material needed to be
the characterizations for the lead are across the board not good. The performances are across the board good. Everybody gives a believable, dynamic, energetic performance. I'm with them. I'm hearing what they're saying, and I'm interested in what they're saying to each other. But when I take a small step back and I think about them as people, I go, none of you are interesting, and I'm having to desperately try to move around in my chair to stay awake. The CGI sucks. The snakes look unbelievably bad. I didn't notice the panoramic shot with the bombing. I think hang
on. Had they kept it shorter, I wouldn't have noticed as much. The fact that explosive sequence goes on for like 3 seconds, and that's like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, when this camera's still spinning, it becomes more and more obviously bad the longer we spend on it.
I might have, again, like I said, I jumped when it exploded, and I was kind of caught up in what was happening in that scene, so I didn't notice it. But a lot of the other CGI in this looks terrible. I laughed hard. Like both Jonas and I were chortling at the drones with the water bottles, like smacking into people. I laughed hard at that. Honestly,
you know what this movie should have done? It should have leaned into like Three Stooges zany comedy. That's really what the direction we should have gone here.
I hate to say it because it sounds like it's a statement made by a stupid person, but go see the movie and you'll know what I'm talking about. The best part of this was the actual Hunger Games. There was sufficient enough menace from the kids. There was sufficient enough horror, not horror like, monsters and jump scares, but there was certainly plenty of that. But also the inhumanity of what they do to each other. It's brutal. It's to the point where me, who's shown his kid Aliens and Megan and Five Nights at Freddy's and the Scream movies, looked over at my kids. I'm like, I kind of feel bad I brought you to this. It's that bad at times. And I know I'm not expecting you to agree with me. I'm saying I'm thinking about a 9 and a 12-year-old who, despite the fact that I've shown him a whole bunch of movies I probably shouldn't have, it's not like it got Saving Private Ryan stormed the beach at Normandy bad, but it is not pleasant to watch. And it made somebody who, I'm not a gorehound like you and Alexis and all them are, but I definitely, I definitely have my penchant for violence on movie screens. And this got to me a little bit. Like, this was brutal in a way that I wasn't quite prepared for in this YA movie. I don't know if that's a critique or something I liked, but it's definitely something I observed. Beyond that, the story sucks. I'm just not interested in the story at all. And the last hour of this movie, I just wanted it to be over, and I can't believe it went as long as it did. And if had a title card come up when he got back to the Capitol and it was like part 4, the bureaucrat or some shit, I honestly would have left. I'm like, I'm fucking out.
Grab your kids and just leave.
Yeah, I would have we're leaving. Goodbye. We'll catch it in a week when it's on PVOD. This movie, needed to be edited down. This was when Martin Scorsese makes a 3-hour movie, I say, okay, you're Martin Scorsese. You've earned that. You've earned the right to be overindulgent. Generally speaking, you make good art. The people making this movie did not earn a 3-hour fucking runtime. And this story certainly didn't support it. So that's really all I have to say. Other than I generally, money aside, I generally don't describe movies as pointless. And so when I do, it is literally because I'm sitting here going, why did we go on this journey and make this movie other than girls like the books? So what? Okay, I get it. And that's fine. But they really, I having not read the book, I don't know how accurate the statement's going to be, but there needed to be a better interpretation of the book then, because this isn't it.
Having also not read the book, I'm going to echo that in theory, just because Suzanne Collins is not a terrible writer, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay giving her the benefit of the doubt in the absence of evidence that the book is better than this. Might be wrong, but I got a hunch. All right. Like you, the CGI did not care for. I'm actually less on the Rachel Zegler hype train than you are.
Is that because you generally don't like her as a performer, or because she said some dumb shit?
Both. It can be both.
Okay, so your brother has been chiming in the entire show, and I've mostly been interacting with him in the comments, but I haven't really put anything on screen because he's sort of like live blogging our podcast. But this one I'm going to. Having not seen the movie but read part of the books, it's better.
I have. Okay. If he's read more of it than I have, so I'll take his word for it. Here's my gripe with Zegler's performance. This is a performance thing. This is both a characterization and a performance thing. If part of your characterization is I sing when I am in emotional distress, you have to make that work, and she doesn't. Rachel Zegler felt
like it was a line of dialogue said just for her to be bitchy. Like, you can't tell me when to sing I'm a busy businesswoman who don't need no man, and that's what she came up with.
And instead, had that been all it was, maybe I could go with you. But then when she starts singing at random intervals throughout the course of the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is some kind of emotional response, and it's just stupid. Rachel Zegler has a decent singing voice. The fact that they pitch her down like an octave here for this, because she's supposed to be singing quasi, dark country or bluegrass stuff, that's not what she's good at singing. And that became pretty apparent. I also, I don't know how much of this was like studio mandate or actor input or director vision, but to your point, there needs to be a dark undercurrent to this character that is utterly absent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to throw the blame at the editing and the character. Everyone could get equal blame, but that includes the actor. I just wind up at half the time anytime Rachel Zegler's on screen. I was only half joking when I said, you could have had Jenny Ortega and it would have been better. I'm only half joking. I think she's a better actress.
No, she's no doubt a better actress.
So that's not great. This is meandering. I'm with you that probably the best individual segment is the Hunger Games themselves. The lead up to it it's a bit slow. And I think what kills me about the lead up is how pointless most of it is.
Well, here's the thing. I'm generally the one, to my son's point, generally the one saying, please don't make this into multiple movies. But this kind of had to be. And that last hour of the movie needed to be its own movie, because what this movie should have been was, because when the theme of this movie is marketing, how do you sell something to the general public? I was really interested in that. They ran away from it screaming. They dedicated, some token gestures to it, but they don't.
I can tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we reveal too many of our secrets, we can't have movable printed type lest the serfs gain literacy and threaten the landed gentry. If we talk about how we actually market these things, people will realize all of the things we're doing.
But that's the thing. That's what this movie should have been about. If you're going to if you're sitting there and you're brainstorming like, well, we want to do a Hunger Games prequel, and it's it's at least in part kind of about how it became this cultural event, this sort of reality TV.
How did this turn into the Super Bowl instead of just because the Super Bowl for a long time wasn't the Super Bowl, right? Like, how do we how do we make this?
Right. So then you need to show that. Like the fun of watching the original Hunger Games, from what I remember, was all the shit they did with Jennifer Lawrence in the sequels that made her like a symbol of reality TV star. Because the Hunger Games was in many ways commenting on America's relationship with television and creating stars out of ordinary people. You know, how you craft an image, how you shape an image, how you market that image. I would have liked to have seen them sort of like doing those things and trying things out. You know, I wanted to see more interaction between the district kids and the people at large. Like, like someone pitch a press tour and then they do one and things happen. And some of it goes good, some of it goes bad. You know, we speed run through a lot of that stuff so that we can get to the Hunger Games, but then also that we can get to that third act, which I don't care about. You know, if your movie is about how did the Hunger Games become the Super Bowl, then you need to spend time on it. The Hunger Games should have been the third act.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
The last shot of this movie should have been Rachel Zegler in the snakes, and then like a shot to the people in the Capitol going, "Oh my God." I hate to make this comparison because it's a terrible movie. It's one of the worst ever made. But what they did with this in this one part relates to what I'm trying to explain should have happened here. Gem and the holograms, the bit where they're just like panning to different YouTube videos of people going, "Oh my God, Gem. I relate to Gem. She's my hero." Like, we don't need to do YouTube videos, obviously, and it should have been handled, more competently than that was. But that kind of a thing, like Rachel Zegler covered in snakes, singing defiantly in the face of everything. Viola Davis, like, what am I supposed to do here? I want to kill her, but I've accidentally created fucking Barbie. I don't know what to do now. And then we pan to like the people across the Capitol and like little girls going, "I want a Rachel Zegler doll. I want this, and oh my God, like it should have been the students yelling, 'Free this bitch.' It should have been the people of the Capitol doing that. Going, but Mark, no.
Don't you understand? The magic voice was coming out of the magic girl, so even the hardened hearts of these students in the Capitol were just touched, and the women were in tears. Save this poor avatar of all things that are good and feminine." And yeah.
So, and then all right.
No, hang on. Because we're splitting this into two movies at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you that we need to spend more time marketing this. Like, this needs to be. Okay, I shouldn't say I hate. If I'm going to rewrite this,
mm-hmm.
the announcement that part of what's going to, of the way you win this big prize is related to the Hunger Games, that doesn't come like the day of the reaping. That needs to come earlier in the academic year.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be part of Snow's motivation. Like, he needs to be thinking about this. He needs to be sitting on this going, okay, I need to win this. I need to win this.
He needs to be on his ass and almost thrown out of school.
Like, they do a decent enough job establishing their desperation, decent enough, but you need to spend more time with that. Like, and
if Peter Dinklage is your big, if what God, speaking of, there's no villains in this thing. Peter Dinklage is supposed to be the big villain of this, and they don't do enough with him at all. So when he dies at the end, spoilers, I don't care. Like, he wasn't a big enough menace. And that's the thing, like, he should, like, the principal in Back to the Future was more of a menace to Marty than Peter Dinklage is to this kid, and he's supposed to be the enemy. He's supposed to be the villain of this movie.
So,
and there needs to be more of that.
So we need more time with that. We need more time with their relationship. We need more time with them trying to figure out how to save the Hunger Games. At which point what you can get if you handle this right, you have a moral character that we don't like in Peter Dinklage, who's like, no, these need to die. They might have served a purpose. They were always terrible, but they might have served a purpose originally. We're at the end of that. Let this thing conclude naturally so we can all become better people than continuing to enjoy the slaughter of children. And hang on.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Opposite a character that is morally dubious in Snow, but whose motivation we understand and we are rooting for, even if it's icky, because we don't want him to fail.
Right, but that's another thing. You bring up a really good point. Another thing this movie lacks is if the dramatic tension is the Hunger Games might go away, and The Purge is a really great example of this. The Purge, for all of its faults, does a really great job of explaining we do this to maintain the peace. You take the Purge away, people get upset, we descend into chaos. That's how we got here in the first place. So we keep the Purge. This is why the Forever Purge was so terrible. But we keep the Purge because the Purge is what lets the steam out of the situation, and we can all kind of live the rest of the year in relative calm. You needed to be showing that in this movie. You needed to be showing that the ecosystem of this world was teetering on the brink of falling back into civil war, and that the Hunger Games isn't having the effect that it once had. Like they showed like in the later Purge movies, they go the Purge. Well, the Forever Purge being the best example of this. Actually, the Purge isn't working like it used to, which is why they want to do it year round.
Forever Purge,
stupid as shit movie. We reviewed it. I put it up on TikTok. Sound premise though is that things are deteriorating and the Purge isn't working. We need to change this so that it works again. The Hunger Games isn't working anymore. We're teetering on the brink of civil war yet again. Nobody wants that. What can we do to tweak the Hunger Games so that this fucking works again? We can go back to being what we're being. It's like pointed at from 1,000 yards in this movie and not dealt with adequately at all. And that's what needed to be in the movie.
Yeah. Again, if we split this into two movies, that's your first movie.
Mm-hmm.
We end it with Dinklage exiling Coriolanus for cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to include in that a scene where it's discussed. Like, I need to see the scene where the cheating is discovered. And, well, what do? Well, we kill him. We can't. And some poor production assistant goes, look, we just had our best ratings ever.
Right.
People liked her. If you just kill her, you're defeating the purpose. You will have killed the Hunger Games and sent us back into war because you've betrayed the premise of what everyone's buying into here.
Could you imagine that Peter Dinklage on the verge of victory, on the verge of the Hunger Games going away, on the verge of getting rid of his best friend's son, and his best friend has betrayed him? Like he can almost have it all. He almost wins, and then you're right, and then somebody comes along and says, "No, if you do this, if you win, we all lose." And Peter Dinklage, imagine the scene, how great an actor Peter Dinklage is. If you win, Peter Dinklage, everybody loses. It all comes apart. And Peter Dinklage going, fucking flip the table angry, going, no. God damn it.
Okay, if you do this, the Hunger Games will end because no one will buy into it anymore. And the next time we try to do something, violence will reign supreme.
And we're back to Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. The good of the many outweigh the good of the Peter Dinklage.
And he has to go. I got outmaneuvered. He realizes he's in checkmate, and the best I can do is not make this woman more of a celebrity, exile my enemies, exile this force, and pray that pray that next year this doesn't go as well. Pray for more, try to. And so hang on, and then I have a year to try and find a way to sabotage this so that it fails. That's it.
So now, when we finally do get to Snow killing him off in the end, it actually has an emotional impact as opposed to what this movie did.
Yeah. So again, we end the first movie on Peter Dinklage realizing I'm screwed. All I did was I kicked the ball down the field, but I'm in a worse position now, and I've got 12 months to figure out a way to sabotage this because this worked more than it should have.
Right.
And then so he exiles his enemy, and that's we end on that exile scene because part 2 is told in 2 parts. You actually do spend some time with Peter Dinklage and Dr. Gall and that back and forth as they're like, yay, celebrating success, planning for the future, and him trying to sabotage it. And you've got Snow doing what you can still tell that same bit of Snow with his friend, maybe trying to move on, maybe getting away from all of the craziness of the Capitol and becoming more of a good person.
So you talked about like we should have seen the Civil War, which would have been nice.
That's
I
my
would have liked
pitch.
to have seen, I would have liked to have seen, if your third movie is him in exile, I would have liked to have seen what is the nature of the revolution. You know, here's the thing. I'm going to say something somewhat nice about the Marvels. So Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, blows up the Supreme Intelligence, and because they don't have the Supreme Intelligence, the entire Kree planet is a bunch of morons, and they can't figure out how to exist on this planet without tearing each other apart. So they go into civil war, and they use up a bunch of resources, and they nuke the planet just to be sure.
And then the sun dies.
And then the sun dies, and the dam breaks, and there was nothing left to do but to blow your brains out. That at least made sense to me, for better or for worse. Okay. I don't know. I don't understand how this. Here's the thing. I don't understand how this world works. Why are the rich rich? Why are the poor poor? I know there's a civil war. I know that, you know, it's the district people versus the, you know, it's the country folk versus the city folk. I get that. But about what? What are they fighting over? What happened in this world that there's not enough and people are fighting over it? How does this world... My problem with this Hunger Games prequel, maybe this was talked about. It's been so long since I've seen the other ones, I don't remember. But I don't remember understanding how that world worked either. And it was more of a focus on, you know, we don't want the Hunger Games anymore, and so the district people are rising up against the tyrannical capital people. Okay, good enough. If you're going to do a prequel, maybe spend some time explaining how this fucking world works. How do the capital people get all their wealth? How are the district people being kept under control and made to do the labor that keeps the capital people afloat? Why don't they resist when the reaping comes? What stops them? None of these things are talked about. None of these things are shown. And it would have been great to get, you know, and if you're going to spend time with Snow in exile, that should have been his story.
Yes. 1,000,000% yes.
And you get none of it because we're having to now speed run through a trilogy.
Yeah.
I've never in my life thought I wish there had been 3 movies. I don't even like this fucking series. All right, finish up and then we can move on.
But no, like, yeah, Snow's time as a peacekeeper, even if we're telling the story ideally, he struggles with that a little bit. He reunites with the love of his life, who is, again, not quite a celebrity for winning, because we're still building to that, but, you know, maybe more recognized, more recognizable, that kind of thing. Then we need their relationship to be more, again, to be more fraught. Like it's way too idyllic, and that's a problem. Because when he shoots her in the woods and leaves her, that needs to carry more weight. Like the actor is doing a good job with that scene, but nothing about what's happening there resonates because it's not been earned in that way. So that's unfortunate. This is, for all the general gripes I have, you know, it's too long, it's a bit unfocused, they try to do way too much. It's not ultimately, I think, in the same way other movies have been this year, I don't think it's a bad movie. There's too much competence for this to be bad. Right. It's just utterly forgettable. It's just a lot of nothing.
It's emblematic of, I think, the big criticism we've had of Hollywood in the past year or two, which is it is filled with cowardice. Yeah. Not a single chance taken, not a single original, interesting, and I don't mean like narratively, just like there's no aesthetic to speak of. There's no vision. They just told this story, and it was like almost like a Disney kind of a thing where it's like, well, we don't want to offend anybody, so let's keep this on a very narrow lane so that it'll have the broadest appeal. But again, it's kind of going back to all the way back to the beginning of the podcast about like the McDonald's cheeseburger. You made a perfectly palatable thing, but it is not the least bit interesting. It will be utterly forgotten as soon as I'm done recording this podcast.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And seeing some of the individual components of this, I kind of think it's a little bit of a shame because there is probably a good story here. It just
I think there's a great story here, but I mean, we
just
talked
couldn't
the
come
whole
out.
first fucking hour. We talked about, the tragedy of a fallen hero who we identify with, and you hope makes the right decisions, and through circumstances out of his control, makes some bad ones and becomes terrible. Like, that's an identifiable story. It's a relatable story.
Yeah, and sadly, that is
It's
not
done well.
really
It's
what
just
we
not
got.
done. Yeah, it's just not done well here. All right. So with that said, here comes the money.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yes, or so.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
So allegedly, there's money.
Oh, it had a
Theoretically,
budget.
there is money.
It had a budget of 100 million, and at the time of this recording, it's made 100 million. As a matter of fact, as of November 19th, 2023, which was yesterday, The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had grossed 44 million in the U.S. and Canada, and 54.5 million in other territories for a worldwide total of 98.5. Deadline Hollywood estimated the film could break even with a domestic gross of 120 to 130 million. Yeah, I think this has already made more than the Marvels. As much the production budget of 100.
We'll get to it.
As much the production budget of 100 million had been financed by pre-sales and partner participation. In the U.S. and Canada, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was released alongside Next Goal Wins, Trolls Band Together, and Thanksgiving, and was projected to gross around 50 million from 3,776 theaters in its opening weekend, with some industry estimates going as low as 45 million or as high as 60 million. The film made 19.1 million on its first day, 5.7 million from Thursday night previews, and went on to debut 44 million, topping the box office, but marking the lowest start of the franchise. Yeah, just a quick thing about that. We sometimes we yell and scream about this when it happens the other direction. This is the first time I've seen it happen in a while, going in this direction, where something that the industry is clearly cheering for, and they're like, look at all these records it broke. It's like, yes, but it did poorly. Can we not lose? Can we stop being myopic in our focus here? Here, it's like, oh, it's the lowest performing of the franchise. Yeah, it still made money though. Like, yes, it didn't do as well as the other ones, which were a cultural phenomena.
Cultural phenomena 10 years ago.
Right. Like, they can't all be fucking Avatar 2. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's fair to note this is the lowest, but there's a bunch of things you need to note alongside that.
That's my problem, is that it's almost like cynical. Like, now you're cheering for this thing to fail because the way that Variety and all of them were reporting it, it was like this was a giant bomb. No, The Marvels was a giant bomb. Indiana Jones was a giant bomb. The Flash was a giant bomb. This probably makes money.
It kind of depends on where exactly things shake out. Again, how much was exactly spent on. My hunch is this winds up marginally profitable, but ultimately not much.
I'm sure Lionsgate's not going to be like thrilled with how little it makes, because I'm sure they were banking on it being big, and I'm sure they're still trying to dig out of the fucking hole Moonfall caused them.
Well, but, between Moonfall and Babylon.
No, Babylon was Paramount.
Oh, right. It almost sank them.
Yeah, Paramount's fucking what canceled out fucking Top Gun Maverick.
Was the loss of Babylon? Yeah.
All right, so it was the number one movie of the weekend. It knocked The Marvels from 1 to 4.
We'll talk about The Marvels in a second.
And more on that in a second. Trolls Band Together, which somebody asked me if I was going to go see it. I'm like, the Trolls had the second Trolls movie World Tour had the dubious honor of being the first movie that was meant for theaters that was available PVOD, because it was the eve of the lockdown. And I watched it then, but I also watched it because I liked the concept of it. I like that they were these different worlds based on a genre of music, and that's fun for me. I don't expect you to agree. I don't expect everyone to agree. I'm saying a cartoon movie where we get to have some fun with musical genres was at least interesting for me to watch with my kids a few years ago at home. If I've now thrown enough qualifiers in there.
You have.
I do not need to see any more Troll movies after that, though. So when I was asked, are you going to see Trolls Band Together, and the focus was boy bands, I went, hell the fuck no. First of all, I don't have children. I don't have children that young anymore. I don't have to see movies like this.
So an MMA personality, a journalist that I follow, saw this with his, I think, 4-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And his review of the movie was, so now I know what it's like to be waterboarded.
Speaking of which, Thanksgiving, which you guys will review Wednesday.
Not me.
Oh, that's right. Alexis, Dorian, and Jason, I think. That debuted at number 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna make time to see the movie, but Wednesday was the only day of the week available, and I am busy every other Wednesday evening, so it didn't quite work out. But
all right, in the highest drop ever.
You have to laugh like that. You have to at this point. It's the only thing you can do.
78.1% drop in its second week.
The Marvels fell from 1 to 4, and as Mark just mentioned, 78% drop. Ladies and gentlemen, that thing opened incredibly soft. It was a bomb on opening. You lose almost 80% of your meager opening to begin with. Dear heavens. Mark, in a just and fair world, which is not the world we live in a fallen world.
Mm-hmm.
People would be fired over this.
I think people are being fired. I was listening to The Drinker do a video. I think between The Drinker and Midnight's Edge, I was listening to some postmortems. It never has the word postmortem been more accurate.
Boy, is it.
On the Marvels, and I think part of the reason why everything but Deadpool got kicked into 2025 was not just the SAG stuff, but was essentially Captain America New World Order has to be completely rewritten and reshot.
Didn't they change that to Brave New World?
Sure.
Just saying. New World Order, Mark, that's a little ominous, isn't it? A little bit conspiratorial. Brave New World. Isn't that a dystopian novel? You can't. Yeah. At which point, everyone in the writers' room throws up their hands and said, "You can't expect us to read books."
We work for Marvel. But yeah, Thunderbolts has to be completely redone, and Blade they haven't even started yet. Blade they keep like, well, how about this one where Blade is the 4th lead? No. Well, how about this where we focus on Elsa Bloodstone? Fuck no. The movie's called Blade, not Blade and everyone else.
But we need to teach life lessons and have positive affirmations in our vampire movie, Mark.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're putting the checks and balances back in place. I don't know if Kevin Feige was taken into a room and beaten with with a soap and a sock.
One would hope.
But my understanding is, and I haven't watched any of Loki season 2, but they gave away the ending where I guess Loki defeats all of the Kang, so Kang is a non-entity going forward.
Hang on.
They don't need a Kang Dynasty movie anymore.
Hang on. That's not specific. That's not exactly what happened, but it's... You could still have Kang be a relevant villain.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand, though, why a bunch of people who did see the finale of Loki went, yeah, you've essentially ruined Kang. There's ways around it, but I get the point.
Last
thing on the Marvel.
Yeah.
So not only did this thing have a production budget of nearly $300 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rumor is starting to kick up about how much they spent on marketing.
Mm.
And it's nearly the production budget.
Yeah, they needed $1 billion movie, and they're going to get like 1/100th that.
They needed, if they had spent nearly like $700 million on this thing between production and marketing, they didn't just need $1 billion movie. They needed one of like the 5 most successful movies of all time.
Right, they got the inverse of that.
This thing, we joked, man. We joked about this is going to be lucky to be Morbius. Turns out, this is going to be lucky to be Morbius.
So the only reason why I even stopped to talk about this, aside from the 80% jump, is I think everyone at Disney and Marvel now realizes, like we talked about this with Marvel. I don't want to go over the same stuff again. They realizes that the brand is dead.
You know what kills me about this, and I mean this, because there's enough information now about who actually saw the Marvels.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, men.
Everyone complaining about men hating on the Marvels. 65% of the audience for this thing was men.
Yeah, look, somebody at Disney, somebody at Disney is like, we have fucked up royally here. This needs to go back to being a product for boys and men. Fix it. You have a year. Fix it now. And that's really all that needs to be said until we get to 2025 at this point. I'm tired. I mean, in our private chat, Alexis made a point of saying, can we not continue to kick Marvel? It's already dead. And I agreed with her. Like,
I want one more pass.
we have to, when news breaks, we have to discuss it. There's been a lot of it lately, but I'm also at a point of like, look, I am the king of beating a dead horse for comedy's sake, but even I'm tired of this.
Just for the sake so everyone knows what's up. Like, we had to talk about it this week because of that drop.
Mm-hmm.
Absent news, we're going to talk about Wish next week or week after, one of the two.
Next week.
And I imagine that's the until we do our year wrap up, because our year wrap up we're going to do early January.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to point and laugh because of course we are. That's what we do. But other than that, like, there's no reason to keep kicking it. Like, the point's been made.
Yeah. All right. Five Nights at Freddy dropped from 2 to 5. And like Five Nights at Freddy. If people are like, God, could you guys stop being so negative? Could you stop talking about Marvel? Well, here's something positive. Five Nights at Freddy is one of the big successes of this year.
Up there.
Not maybe
definitely
in total growth. But when you consider how long it stayed in the number 1 spot, because it's been out 4 weeks now and it's just dropped from 2 to 5, how much money it's made relative to its budget, the fact that the fact that video game movies are a dicey proposition to begin with, Five Nights at Freddy's hit a grand slam. What more can you say? Like, it did a great job. Taylor Swift dropped from 3 to 6, The Holdover 6 to 7. Next Goal Wins debuted at 8. I want to get out and see Priscilla before it gets out of the theaters. I just heard a review on it on Critically Acclaimed. It sounds good. I'm interested. Shut up. I'm interested in it. I don't know if I'm going to make it to see it in theaters. Kills of the Flower Moon dropped from 5 to 10. Tiger 3 8 to 11. Journey to Bethlehem 7 to 12. Radical 9 to 13. Saltburn debuted at number 14. Fallen Leaves 20. The Stones and Brian Jones debuted at number 22. The Disappearance of Sheer Height 30. Black Gold, White Devil, the 2023 re-release 38. And that was the weekend that was. Worldwide, no movement.
Look at that rock solid, Mark. Look at that.
You could build a house on the foundation of this.
You really could. Like, nothing in there is moving.
I'm not even reading these. I'm not reading these. I read these every week and they don't move. The only thing I want to point out is Ant-Man and the Wasp from February.
The fentanyl corpse that you walk by as it leans against the building, the imaginary building. It's right there, man. $476 million. Still the 10th most successful movie of the year. The highest grossing.
Fucking believable. Five Nights at Freddy's has now made more money than The Flash.
Woohoo!
Here are the top 10 movies that have...
Dude, it might take over Creed. It legitimately might.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it.
It needs to pay... For it to have like a moral victory, it needs to pass Indiana Jones, I think, at this point. Here are the movies currently doing...
That would be the funniest thing.
Here are the top 10 movies currently doing worse than The Flash. The Nun 2, Sound of Freedom, Taylor Swift.
No. Hang on. These are all the movies doing worse than Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay, fair.
And it includes The Flash.
The Nun 2, Sound of Freedom, Taylor Swift, Dungeons and Dragons, Paw Patrol, The Equalizer, Insidious, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Scream, and The Marvels coming in at number 27. But it made more money than Evil Dead Rise and Kills of the Flower Moon.
One, I resent that it made more money than Evil Dead Rise.
Mm-hmm.
But Evil Dead Rise actually made money. It's in the black. So,
yeah.
Dude, it might not beat Scream. I mean, it'll probably get the 7 million or so it needs to beat Scream. Probably.
Yeah.
But it's not. Man, they spent almost $500 million on that thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
not to beat this particular point to death, but I mean, we have resoundingly criticized Disney, and I don't mean in the way that everyone else does. I mean, we have talked about they have made some poor businesses. They are not managing this company well. So just from a purely protect the stock price, protect the investors, they are not managing Disney well.
To that point,
And,
like if they were making crap that we didn't like, but they were still making money, we'd have to live with that reality.
I mean, look, Ragnarok most famously on this podcast, you have lambasted and been lambasting ever since. But it made some astronomical figure, and it's like, yeah, can't knock the hustle. But my point,
I can absolutely knock everyone who saw it more than once and said it was still good after the second viewing, but
yeah, my point is, when you make bad decisions, I'm going to call them up. But when you make a good decision, to put the brakes on Marvel, and like I said, I'll be the first one to say Hollywood not brave. But when you think about how much money Thunderbolts, Captain America 4, and Blade are going to cost them, because they basically have to take 2 to 3 years of production and development and throw it in the trash and start all over again. And they're just doing it. They're like, we don't care. Burn the forest, salt the earth, start all over again. There's nothing more we can do.
Hang on. If you're gonna start over, you don't salt the earth. Like the
sure.
forest is overgrown, we burn it down and we reseed. Like we have to replant.
Thank you for saving my analogy. But again, it takes a lot of balls to do that. Like, I don't want to beat up on her, but Alexis, every time David Zaslav cancels a cartoon, has kittens. Literally, she just births a kitten, comes out and meow. But David Zaslav, like, he's gotten himself in trouble with the government. They're like, "What are you doing over there?" But he's another one where it's just like, no, it's just shit's not making any money. I'm tired of burning money. I'm tired of throwing away good money after bad. This has to stop. And if it makes me unpopular because I canceled your favorite cartoon, go fuck yourself.
Hang on. Because you brought up Zaslav in particular, let me express my personal problems with this.
For those who don't know, he is in charge of Warner Brothers, and he is just most recently canceled the Acme versus Coyote movie that was already done, and the entire internet fucking's head exploded. Go on.
My problem with how Zaslav, and this is just business, okay? This is not an artistic call on my part. Turns out we've got enough information now that Batgirl may have been done dirty. Like, the test screenings weren't great, but they weren't awful. It was more than savable with, again, a small amount of reshoots, putting in the CGI. You would have had something passable, right? And he chose to cancel that and to throw it away for a tax write-off. And yet everyone involved was giving themselves hand jobs over The Flash before it came out, and everyone realized, and the market soundly rejected it.
Look,
hang on. Let me make my point.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought you had made your point.
No. Like, that's part of it. Now you're canceling a finished movie that has a relatively low budget. And you're still releasing Aquaman.
Yes, because at Disney, the mandate was girls and minorities. And then the world soundly rejected, put a chick in it, make it gay. And Zaslav had to have seen that. And lame. And Zaslav had to have seen that. Not everybody is following blindly as Disney walks off a cliff. Some of these studios saw the signs early on. And I mean, like, you can't help that Sony is like, a mentally disabled child. So
Sony is barely a movie studio at this point.
Yeah. Let's put Sony aside. Sony's in the special class. But like Paramount, Lionsgate, Warner Brothers, Universal, like the only movie studio not making one mistake after another, saw the signs well before Disney got to where it got to, and was, Disney's religious commitment to put a chick in it, make it gay and lame, they had to have seen that and go, no thanks. So if you're David Zaslav, and your trusted advisors are telling you, hey, Disney's religious commitment to put a chick in it and make it gay isn't really working, and that studio's gonna implode if they keep this up. Maybe we should stop. And it's like, what do we have on slate? We have Superman. I'm sorry, we have The Flash, we have Aquaman, we have Blue Beetle, and we have Batgirl, and we have Shazam too. Well, it sounds like only one of those has a girl in it. Kill the one with the girl. Like, I hate to say this because I'm not a misogynist, believe it or not, contrary to popular opinion, but that's sound logic with all the other data involved.
Okay, and here's my only counter to that, because as you say it, I track you. Okay, I do follow. My issue is this is a business thing that I take issue with. You are watching the I'm not going to say death of the superhero genre. That's way too far. It is, however, contracting rapidly. Right? Bare minimum. Empirical evidence. This thing is rapidly contracting. And your decision is then, I'm going to release the last of these catastrophic budget films. Okay.
In Aquaman's defense, same director that made the $1 billion movie. That's all they cared about.
I know. And look, Aquaman might be an okay movie. We haven't seen it. I don't have high hopes, but it might. So Aquaman I can actually kind of track. Deciding to release The Flash. If you're going to take a tax write-off, throw that one into the garbage. Set it on fire.
I can tell you why they kept The Flash.
Because
Again,
Ezra Miller has incriminating evidence.
No. Because Lizard Brain. And in that particular case, it was, hey, isn't there examples of nostalgia making, tricking people into spending their money? Don't people like the Michael Keaton Batman? That was it. That's all you needed. Look, you're an executive and you know nothing about comic books. You think they're lame and they're for children. You're trying to pull Warner Brothers out of the fucking Great Depression era rut that it's in. And so you don't have a lot of time. You have other shit to do besides what movies gets made and what don't. You are the CEO of fucking Warner Brothers. This is a 5-minute part of your day. So the guy in front of you has a slate of movies in his lap, and all he's saying is, okay, so tell me, so what is The Flash? I don't know. We got Michael Keaton's 1989 Batman in there. It's got a whole bunch of cameos from a bunch of different movies. That's popular, right? Yeah, keep that one. Okay, what do you got next?
No.
Aquaman.
Okay, hang on. Here's the other issue I have with The Flash. You can't be the CEO of Warner Brothers and not be aware of the dumpster fire that is Ezra Miller.
I'm sure that came up, and they were like,
"That look, man. Between the market contracting, you're desperate for tax write-offs, and this dumpster fire of a human."
I'm telling you, they saw the Michael Keaton Batman thing and were like, "That'll be enough to save it."
Look, and this is my problem with it, right? Why do I have an issue with David Zaslav? He's making bad business decisions. You get
I'm not arguing that. My thing is explaining why he's making them.
Okay, and I'm not even saying you're wrong with that. I'm saying, look, I don't have the biggest emotional connection to, why do I not get to watch Wile E. Coyote and John Cena duke it out? He's in the movie. I'm sure that sounds like fun. If that came out, I'm sure I'd have a good time. I'm saying you want a $30 million write-off for a movie that had you are cutting off your nose to spite your face while your arm is stuck in a bear trap. How about we amputate what needs to be amputated?
Sure. All right. I think we have beat the subject to death, but as far as getting back to the money related to this stupid movie, Wish will be the #1 movie of the weekend. And then after Wish,
maybe. I mean, probably, but I have to throw the caveat out there, maybe, at this point.
Not a whole lot's happening in December. I mean, to the point that I had to flop the movies because of my social life. But Napoleon's out now. We'll do that one. We were supposed to do it in 2 weeks, but we're going to do it in 3 weeks because, again, my social life. So we're going to look at some Netflix movies. We got The Killer and Pain Hustler. Then we have Napoleon. Then we have Wonka. So like the next big movie is Wonka. But I think, The Hunger Games is done after this weekend. And then, it's got a couple of weeks to make a decent amount of money to stay profitable, to stay in the green, but nothing earth shattering. And then Wonka will be the number one movie of the weekend, and then Aquaman, and then we're done with this godforsaken year. So with that said, let us continue with the critical.
Before you hit that button.
Yes.
I've now seen both The Killer and Pain Hustlers.
Mm-hmm. Do I have to change the schedule again?
No. That'll be a short podcast.
Yay. Robert, we're 2 hours and 15 minutes into a nothing movie podcast. There's nothing short about anything that we do.
Those ones will be short.
Okay.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right. Well, I mean, fuck us. The critics gave it a 63%.
Well,
reading.
Okay, hang on. Serious question. This movie, grading, pass or fail?
Pass.
I would agree with that. And that's kind of how you get to a fresh review for a movie that has a myriad of problems.
Right. And then the audience score, who clearly didn't think critically about it and just liked what they saw, 91%.
I'm going to assume at least half of those people fell asleep and just really liked the dream they had.
Top critics, this drops to 55%.
That tracks.
Yep. All audience, it drops to 83, but it still stays,
Well, hang on. That also tracks. Like, that's a pretty... That's what, 8 percentage points?
Mm-hmm. Roughly.
On the audience side, that does track, believe it or not, when you get away from the shills.
An outstanding cast and exciting story. Easy on the exciting there. Help make The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds Snakes a worthy return to Panem, in spite of a rushed and somewhat frustrating ending. You call that rushed?
Well, in fairness to that point, I think abrupt would be better than rushed.
Alrighty. Jason Adams of Pajiba is on drugs. The richest and most meaningful film of the entire franchise, a heartbreaker with beautiful highs and devastating lows.
How simple do you have to be for this to really hit you like that?
Yeah. Lauren Veneziani of DC DC Film Girl. Director Francis Lawrence does an incredible job with this novel adaptation, and Tom Blyth and Rachel Zegler have electric chemistry in the Hunger Games prequel. Ooh, I didn't mention it, but I don't think they had much sexual chemistry, to be honest with you.
You, my dear, copy and pasted the PR talking points. Good job.
Lee Lai of Mediaversity Reviews. Despite its racial diversity, the film...
No one gives a...
Despite its racial diversity, the film deploys...
I was close there.
You really were. The film employs a safe but shallow colorblind approach. I can't even with this. Colorblind approach that blunts its positive effects.
Because everything has to be viewed through the lens of race, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody fire that person.
At least put him off Rotten Tomatoes. Robert Winfree's grandmother, Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate. In a pivotal scene...
Promoted to my grandmother. That's a new one.
A while ago. That's not a new joke. In a pivotal scene...
it kind of is.
It's not. I know when I said
her a lot. We've used her a lot, but...
In a pivotal scene in this banal, dull, boring prequel in which poisonous snakes are slithering all over her, the heroine bursts into song, making me want to stuff a sock in her mouth. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, this is like the world's worst Disney movie. No, I mean that. Like, hey, let's make a Disney princess movie where she sings to snakes.
Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movie.
Even Kevin Carr got this one right.
rather than splitting a book into two dull, overlong, and bloated films, they've just made one dull, overlong, and bloated film. Well, he's not wrong.
He is not wrong. You know what? Good on you, man.
Do a few more of these and then call it a night because I can already see myself going down fast. John Mendelsohn of CBR. This Hunger Games prequel provides intriguing performances and some insight into the early days of Panem, but fails to keep the momentum throughout.
That's a fairly safe review, but he's not wrong. Oh, wait, go back up. You got to read Richard Roper.
Okay.
Saw him up there. Yeah, just because he's right in this case.
Richard Roper of Chicago Sun-Times top critic. Overindulgent and bloated origin story. Not wrong.
See? Brevity.
Soul of Wit. Let's see here. Hope Madden of Mad Wolf. Oy. Davis and Dinklage are characteristically wonderful. Davis, in particularly, delight in a weirdly sinister role, with Dinklage offers a mournful, broken soul for the film.
Peter Dinklage, 10 minutes of screen time, took up half your review. That ought to tell you something.
Yeah. Amy, we'll end with good old Amy. Amy Nicholson, New York Times, top critic. Our world so hauntingly echoes Collins' fictions that the film shot lady go for a fucking walk. That the film shot last summer moves to suspend its gargantuan running time, reflecting on contemporary headlines, mourning the generational tragedy of anger and fear begetting anger and fear. Oof.
Ma'am, I implore you to read something other than The Handmaid's Tale.
Well, folks, under 2.5 hours, we just ended this podcast. We still have to do plugs, so we may make it longer than the movie itself. But that is our review of The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds Snakes. No show tomorrow. I am recording something, but it will not be for public air just yet. However,
Subscribe to our OnlyFans and you'll get it early.
So actually, the only thing dropping for the rest of the week on our network is a couple of years ago, one of our Thanksgiving Metal Hammer of Dooms we did was Limp Bizkit's Greatest Hits because, you know, we're us.
World's shortest.
But in the evening time,
right up there with how much Bill Clinton loves his wife. Just.
But in the evening time, myself and Dorian Price are going to be doing an on trial for Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow.
That'll be fun.
This weekend, as I'm re-airing old stuff, I came across our TV party extra for the WWE Halftime Heat from a few years ago. That was an NXT show. That was a 6-man tag. So we'll re-air our live commentary of that. And then I had an interesting weekend and I wasn't able to get this done in time. So this weekend coming up is our re-airing of Clutch, Psychic Warfare. Next week, debut Hollywood, it'll be myself, Alexis, Robert, and Zach, who's already been promoting the show because he's a good boy. We'll be talking Wish. We're either going to do this or we're never going to do it because I'm sick and tired of Jason, like, fucking flaking out on me. This will be the third attempt to do the Long Road to Ruin for Lake Placid. Dorian, Alexis, and Jason will be doing Thanksgiving, the movie, on the 29th. And then I've got two TV parties, one day, one night. First, myself and Alexis will be talking Upload Season 3. And then it's a little late, but, you know, we never do these on time anymore. Our Veterans Day show this year, myself and Andrew Graham will be talking The Pacific. So that'll be fun.
It's an ocean. It's big.
Yes, sir. All right, that's all for me. Thanks. Do your pugs while I run to the bathroom.
All right. You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. This last Saturday was UFC on ESPN Plus 90. 14 fights. Many. Decent enough card, especially if you can kind of pick and choose. There were some highlights. If you would like to know what those highlights were, you can listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, which I host on Sunday evenings. It goes live Monday. Sorry. this last week I review that event and I talk a little bit about Bellator having been bought by the PFL and some other news. So the Wide Wacky Wonderful World of Mixed Martial Arts is something I cover again pretty much every week. As for my other coverage this week, there is no UFC event on Saturday, but I do not get a Saturday off. I'll have MLW on Thursday, assuming they have something for Thursday. They normally do for Thursday. They have like Fusion on Thanksgiving doohickeys, so I imagine they'll have something that I'll have a review for. WWE SmackDown on Friday, and because I am a good and helpful boy, when the editors over at 411mania.com said, help, Survivor Series, help, I sighed loudly and said, okay.
Oh, wait a minute. There's no UFC, so you got conned into doing Survivor Series?
That's accurate.
You poor bastard.
Look.
Hey, what do you got going on the night of Boxing Palooza?
I don't know. What day is that?
That is the December 23rd.
Really, I have something better to do with my time than cover
that. I seriously doubt that.
Monstrosity. Hang on. I said ideally. I didn't say I did. I said I wish I did.
This is where let's creep towards Saturday. You not having UFC coverage so that I have you for the entire 8-hour show that this is going to end up being.
Third. No, the last UFC event is December 16th.
Woohoo!
Hang on. That's not that's not a confirmation yet. Hang on.
Robert can't have a Saturday to himself. I'll claim him yet. We're gonna do a commentary for the whole thing.
Let's see. WWE does not. Their last thing is wow. It's just kind of rare for them not to have a December one. Survivor Series is it for the year for them, and then the Rumble at the end of January.
Oh, there's no December show?
No, but there's an NXT one, but
right.
Who cares? Nope, no December, and then nothing before again January 27th for the Royal Rumble.
This is right here in my backyard. Actually, it's in what's at the Ray Stadium.
I expect you to go commit arson.
So, Robert, want to cover the entire Riyadh season pay-per-view?
I'm not going to commit on air at the moment. I need to briefly hash some things out, but as of this conversation, there is not another commitment.
Woo!
So I will check, and then I will make sure you reimburse me for the pay-per-view.
Oh my God. Okay.
Dude, if we're doing this, you're paying.
What happened to you, like, stealing all this stuff?
Mark, how dare you?
Yeah, okay.
You will at least hang on. Okay, I kind of resent that. I get reimbursed for my pay-per-view purchases. 411 is nice enough to reimburse me for those.
I'm not going to continue to beat on this drum, but no.
You will at least have to pay me what I'm normally paid for coverage.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
I'm not going to say it on air because it's a depressing number for the amount of hours I put in.
Okay. All right, hurry up. Come on, I want to go.
So, yeah, Survivor Series on Saturday. That will be it. And then, Wish next week. So that'll be something.
That'll be a lot of me playing with my phone while you guys talk. I can already tell you that now.
Mark, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do it either, dude.
Oh, we had what was that thing I said earlier about the 10-year mark?
Yeah.
That's when things start falling off. We got 13 years.
It's been a nice run, buddy.
Now we got the.
Oh, did I tell you Ronnie volunteered to take over Deadpool for you?
I'm more tempted by that than I want to admit.
No, he was like, give me anything Robert doesn't want to do anymore if he's going to complain. And I'm like, okay, first of all, Robert complains about everything. Don't take that literally.
Dude, I grumble. That's what I do.
I was like, I told him calm the fuck down. But I did say, like, he really probably doesn't want to do Deadpool. So if you're insisting on, like, being Robert's fill-in, I'll ask him. But that was about the only one I could think of where you were, because he asked me, he was like, give me all the stuff Robert doesn't want to do, and I'm like, there isn't anything that Robert doesn't actually want to do. You usually tell me well, like a Barbie situation. You usually tell me well ahead of time. And then the only one I could think of off the top of my head when he was badgering me about it last night was Deadpool. And the only reason why I even thought about it was, like, it's not that you said you didn't want to do it. It was more of, we have been having the Deadpool conversation now for, since that movie came out for so many years, that I was like, I'll bet he doesn't want to. I'll bet he legitimately would want that night off.
Let me think about that.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is always, like, is if I start down that path, how easy it is to just keep going.
I believe me, I'm not recommending you do. All right,
So,
folks.
again, I'm just going to say, I'm more tempted than I'd like to admit, but
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily taking him up on the offer just yet.
I would appreciate that. All right, folks, that is our review of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Scheduling and Snakes. For Robert Winfree, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.